Faites l'appel, s'il vous plaît, Madame le greffier.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier. Présent. Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Brelard.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Madame le connétable de Saint-Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Grouville. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Sauveur.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Southern. Madame le député Labbé.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Tadier. Monsieur le député Luce. Madame le député Dublay. Monsieur le député Moral.
Présent.
Madame le député Lehegara.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Ayer.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le député Alves.
Présente.
Madame le député Gardner.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Ghost.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Farnham.
Présent.
Madame le député Moore. Monsieur le député Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Joseph. Monsieur le député Balash.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Coles.
Présent.
Madame le député Poré. Monsieur le député Wall.
Présent.
Madame le député Miles.
Présente.
Madame le député Scott.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Renouf. Madame le député Curtis. Madame le député Feltham.
Présente.
Madame le député Binet.
Présente.
Madame le député Jeune. Madame le député Jeune. Madame le député Miller. Madame le député Howell. Monsieur le député Binet. Monsieur le député Ferry.
Présent.
Madame le député Kovac.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Curtis.
Présent.
Madame le député Ward.
Présente.
Madame le député Wilson.
Présente.
Madame le député Stevenson.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Andrews.
Monsieur le doyen.
Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et les puissances de la terre, pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir les cœurs et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, de la conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit, que toute leur délibération est accompagnée de ta bénédiction. Réussisse au bien-être, au soulagement du peuple, qu'il t'a plu de commettre à leur soin. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par les mérites de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui es aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonne nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous envoie pas en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal, car à toi le règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Monsieur le connétable de Grouville.
Défaut.
Monsieur le député Tadier.
Présent.
Madame le député Dublay.
Présente.
Madame le député Moore.
Défaut.
Monsieur le député Joseph.
Présent.
Madame le député Poré. Vous jurez que Madame le député Poré est tellement indisposée qu'elle ne peut pas assister aux états sans exposer sa santé.
Malade.
Monsieur le Deputy Renov.
Sir, Deputy Renov is attending to a family matter to which he alluded yesterday and asked the leave of the Assembly to be marked excusé.
Members content to mark Deputy Renov excusez? Excusez.
Madame la Deputy Miller.
Présente.
Les états sont constitués. We now return to public business. The next item is the draft Shipping Jersey Amendment Law lodged by the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. The main respondent is the Chair of the Economic and International Affairs Scrutiny Panel. I'll ask the greffier to read the citation.
Draft Shipping Jersey Amendment Law 2000, a law to amend further the Shipping Jersey Law 2002. The states, subject to the sanction of His Most Excellent Majesty and Council, have adopted the following law.
The Minister will propose the principles. Minister.
Thank you, sir. Indeed, I am here to propose the principles of the Jersey Shipping Law 2002. These amendments will strengthen Jersey's maritime legal framework, sir, and make Jersey's waters safer and more accessible for all islanders and visitors. Sir, the background to these amendments stretches back to the 2023 Ministerial Delivery Plan, which is committed to updating Jersey's maritime law. This is needed due to areas of deficiency in Jersey's maritime legislation and legal anomalies, which currently put some seafarers at a lesser level of legal responsibility to others. Due to the policy objectives of these amendments spanning two specific pieces of legislation, the amendments have been split into two separate proposals, P3 2025 and P4 2025, both of which will be presented as separate proposals but are designed to complement each other. Jointly, these amendments will make Jersey's territorial waters safer for everyone, and subsequent to, hopefully, the Assembly approving these proposals, P3 will be brought in a few months' time. P4 is brought forward first as it creates the wider legal vires that P3 is dependent upon. The core changes proposed within P4 include the widening of the definition of ship and vessel to include small watercraft used for leisure activities, such as jet skis and other smaller speedboats. This change is being proposed because currently the general legal definition of ship or vessel only includes watercraft used for navigation, rather than vessels purely used for leisure. By expanding the definitions, the law ensures that everyone who uses Jersey's waters does so to the same level of responsibility as larger vessels, and ensures accountability if an incident occurs during which the person in control of the vessel is at fault. The proposition, sir, also includes updated provisions for the investigation of marine accidents involving Jersey ships or ships in Jersey's waters. By raising our regulatory maritime standards in this way, the benefits to our island will be wide-reaching, ensuring our waters are safer for all who use it, making Jersey more attractive to visitors, and in turn, demonstrating Jersey's commitment to safety. As a member of both the Red Ensign Group and obviously a maritime jurisdiction between two of the world's largest maritime jurisdictions, it's really important from our perspective that we have a level of legislation that ensures the safety of all who use our water. So, and with that, I make the proposition.
Thank you. Are the principles seconded? Does any member wish to speak on the principles? Deputy Joseph.
Thank you, sir. I welcome the Minister's opening remarks, and I had received, I'm not a member of the scrutiny panel, and I probably have scrutinised this. I wonder if the Minister would allude to or explain, before we go to the principles of the bill that is before us, that the concerns that have been heard about the powers that are going to be vested in a limited company, albeit owned by the States of Jersey. Has he taken advice that this is the right issue? Because those that were concerned about the very important changes which he is making, which I believe are absolutely right, was in the government plan, as he said, in 2023, there have been some contrary views as to the way that we're going to debate the articles, and maybe he could just allude to that and rest and give some comfort to members that those contradictory positions have been reconciled and are fair and balanced before we get on to the main debate.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member speak on the principles? Yes, Conatard of St Brelard.
So I just rise briefly to congratulate the Minister and his department for bringing this forward as one who's been involved with maritime matters for many years. The result of a serious accident some years ago in St Blas Bay has stimulated this, and I'm pleased that the department has reacted accordingly, and I look forward to these being accepted by other members. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Conatard. Deputy Scott.
Sorry, sir, I'm not going to speak now. Thank you.
Deputy Taddeo.
Thanks, sir. It's just that this piece of legislation falls to our scrutiny panel, so it's just to reassure members that we have issued a comments paper, which some members may have had a chance to read, but it's there for reference if members do wish to look at it. And we have effectively conducted scrutiny from a very early stage, receiving briefings from officers and questioning the Minister on this subject. So we effectively did concurrent scrutiny on it. So we're quite happy with this piece of legislation coming forward. Just to alert members that it is, I'm sure the Minister might refer to it if he hasn't already, that is part of a wider piece of work that's going on, so that we're expecting, I mustn't get my numbers wrong, this is P4, we're expecting P3 to come back later on in the year. I think they were lodged effectively together as one piece of work. The scrutiny panel would suggest that the forthcoming legislation that's to be debated rather is potentially much more contentious than this piece of legislation. We have highlighted, just to give early indications, so because I think it all does need to be considered in the round, that it will consider issues like piloting a boat under the influence, whether of drugs or drink, and we would question to what extent actually it should be made an offence in its own right rather than the way it's being drafted. But this in itself is perhaps the foundational legislation which will at some point feed into that, which doesn't pose any problems for us as a panel. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member? Yes, Deputy Luce.
I'd just like to add my support to the Minister in this good work that he's bringing forward, sir. Somebody who spent quite a bit of time at sea, I've seen lots of things, and I've even held myself a commercial skipper's licence, and some of the antics, if I can describe them as that happen, are unfortunate, and what the Minister's doing here is the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. If no other member wishes to speak on the principles, I call upon the Minister to reply. Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank all the members who have taken time to speak. Starting with the chair of the scrutiny panel, I'd like to thank him and his panel for undertaking the work that they have done and their comments paper. I would be pleased to engage with them more closely on P3. I think is what the chair was referring to ensure that their concerns are taken, heard at least, and possibly appropriately dealt with before that one is spoken to in the States. With regard to Deputy Ozef, I'm not entirely sure what contradictory positions he is referring to, but these are not powers for a private company. These are powers that are vested by the Minister into the Harbour Master. And the Harbour Master has, that is a role which sits outside of government, and it's a role which currently is undertaken by the Harbour Master, who is also an employee of Ports of Jersey. But he is the Harbour Master by virtue of the responsibility conveyed to him by the government and by the Minister. And so from that perspective, his role as Harbour Master is his role as Harbour Master, regardless of who his employment is with. And with that, sir, I'll make the appel, please, sir.
The appel has been called for. Members are invited to return to their seats. I ask the greffier to open the vote. All members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. I ask the greffier to close the voting. announce that the principle's been adopted unanimously, 43 votes for. It's been confirmed by Deputy Tadier that the relevant panel do not wish to scrutinise this matter, as they've done so already in effect. So, Minister, we return to the second reading. How do you wish to propose the articles in second reading?
On block, as there's appeared no request from the Assembly to do it otherwise, so on block, please.
Are the articles seconded? Yes. Does any member wish to speak on the articles in second reading? Deputy Joseph.
So the question that I alluded to was indeed the role of the Harbour Master, which the Minister has quite rightly said, and I'm just trying to find the article which it relates to. In his explanation, he explained quite correctly the role of Harbour Master, but at the end of his explanation, he explained that that was in fact an employee of Ports of Jersey Limited and not a civil a member of the States of Jersey with all of those checks and balances that are quite different as being an arm's length organisation employee as opposed to an individual that is going to be granted effectively policing powers. And I just wondered how that was going to be dealt with. I don't criticise it. I absolutely agree with the Minister and with those other persons that have spoken. But I have received representations, albeit a few weeks ago, that it was problematic and needed to be taken with a great deal of caution to give policing powers to effectively an employee of an arm's length organisation, which is not the same as being an employee of the States of Jersey under the State Employment Board, etc. And I really welcome the fact, I know the Minister's got to do all of this, but this is one issue which I have been alerted to, that, as members will understand, it's a very different situation to be an employee of an ALO, a company, albeit states-owned. It's not the same thing as an office holder that's an office holder by virtue of being an employee of the States of Jersey. And I'm not a legal expert, sir. I'm not an expert at all. But this issue has been flagged as it is unusual and it doesn't conform to various different other issues which have been in place in other places. And there is a possibility that, for example, is the Harbour Master being an employee of Ports of Jersey? How is his absolutely necessary investigatory powers going to trump everything? It's almost a bit like, sir, it's having a private firm being a policeman, because that's effectively what it is. It's like G4. If the Minister for Home Affairs bring a proposal to bring G4S. All right, G4S isn't owned, but G4S is a company, and that is a different statutory, that's got all sorts of connotations that's different. And Ports of Jersey is a company. So could the Minister kindly tell me that we shouldn't be worried about this, because it seems to me an obvious lacuna potential that the reporting requirement of an employee is very different from a State of Jersey police. I think the Home Affairs Minister would get a really hard time if she'd start incorporating the police force. I hope those comments are seen as being constructively of assistance and the purpose of this assembly, which is to debate and to get answers. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Deputy Scott.
I just wondered if I could ask Deputy Joseph a point of clarification.
Prepared to give some clarification?
Of course, sir.
Yes.
In terms of the concern he's raised, is he suggesting it would be a more appropriate structure for, say, the Harbour Master to be a sole corporation directly employed by government as opposed to one employed by Ports of Jersey?
So it's not for me to bring policy issues, but I would be concerned about delegating what effectively is the underlying issue is effectively delegating investigatory powers to Ports of Jersey Limited, which is a commercial entity, which has a different objective, which is effectively basically a property company as well as running other things. And there could be a conflict of interest and legal boundaries, which the Assistant Minister as a lawyer will understand better than I do. The shipping law amendment debate reflects this underlying, brings to force, which is why I'm raising it. That's what our job is here, is to identify the fact that there is a potential tension between enhancing enforcement powers and ensuring proper governance of that post holder. That's it, really. I don't think I can clarify any more, sir. I think I've explained my concern. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Does any other speaker speak to the articles in that second reading? Yes, Conor Thompson.
Thank you, sir. Picking up on Senator already, a promotion. On Deputy Joseph's point, sir, I wonder whether the Minister may be able to answer this or not, whether it was my understanding that the Harbour Master's powers were akin to that of a centeneer, and I wonder if he would know whether that is still the case. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Does any other member speak to the articles in second reading? I call upon the Minister to reply. Minister.
Thank you, sir. I thank Deputy Joseph and the Constable of St Bernard for their comments. It is interesting. I know Deputy Joseph has previously been Minister for Economic Development, and I don't know if he was in that role when he would almost certainly, I haven't checked the voting record, but have voted for the incorporation of Ports of Jersey and was part of the government that incorporated Ports of Jersey at the time. He will, I'm sure, as a member of that Council of Ministers, be aware that when he voted for that and when he was part of the government that incorporated Ports of Jersey, the Harbour Master then was passed from the employment of the government of Jersey to Ports of Jersey, and that the Harbour Master and that role that went with it had policing powers already. And so the policing powers of the Harbour Master, which were already in existence in 2012, I think it was 2012 when Ports of Jersey was incorporated, went with the Harbour Master. They go with the role of the Harbour Master. And so, whilst I think Deputy Joseph's questions are entirely valid, it is interesting because these are questions that he should have been raising 12 years ago when the incorporation of Ports of Jersey took place. The incorporation of Ports of Jersey has taken place. It is the position that I've inherited as Minister. As a result, I have a Harbour Master who is an employee of Ports of Jersey, but he is separately the Harbour Master. He is sworn in through the Royal Court, and he has those roles, those duties which are given to him via the Minister. And regardless of his position of employment, he has that role to undertake, and that is sworn via the Royal Court. And those powers that he has today, which he has policing powers today, remain. These are to give him, yes, slightly wider powers, but powers to make sure that we have the safety at sea. So the issue, and I know there is some discontent amongst some people, very far from a majority, but some people, that the Harbour Master is an employee of Ports of Jersey, and Ports of Jersey is, people say, a private company. I find this a very interesting position to take, because Ports of Jersey is very often seen as just an arm, a division of the government of Jersey. And I'm sure the Chief Executive of Ports of Jersey would love to feel that he had greater independence than he does. But Ports of Jersey work incredibly closely with the government of Jersey and with my department at all times on pretty much all matters, and I'm sure the Treasury Minister can attest to the same. So this isn't a private company. This isn't a private security firm with private shareholders. This is a company that is wholly owned by the states of Jersey. And as such, I think is a company that we can trust. I think if we cannot trust a company that we ourselves own, then we are in a difficult place. But separate to that, the Harbour Master, as I said, is sworn by the Royal Court, appointed by the Minister, and his role as a Harbour Master stands regardless of his employment position. I have, on top of that, been working with the Harbour Master to create an enforcement policy to ensure that he undertakes the roles around enforcement and policing roles in an appropriate manner. And that is that enforcement policy. In a sense, you could talk about it as a memorandum of understanding. That enforcement policy is a policy which happy to be circulated. It'd have to be after the debate, but is one that will ensure that he undertakes those policing powers in an appropriate manner, and will give the public confidence that he is undertaking those powers in an appropriate manner, sir. With that, thank you, sir. I propose...
Wait. Would the Minister give
Prepared to give way? And oh yes, all right, yes.
Thank you, sir. Point of clarification. I won't respond because it's not question time to my own role previously, although I have been known to raise issues but guided by collective responsibility. I wasn't the Minister. I was the Minister for External...
Well, I think you're doing what you said you wouldn't do.
Pardon? Sorry.
You're doing what you said you wouldn't do. So just ask a point of clarification.
Right. So effectively, when the shipping law, could the Minister confirm that when the shipping Jersey Law 2002 and the incorporation in 2015, it was incorporated on the basis that the maritime safety and enforcement was effectively a subsidiary responsibility to the company, and it never envisaged that there should be a contemplation of giving the powers of this magnitude to be assigned to a commercial body. I don't ascribe any problem with Ports of Jersey, but there are lessons to be learned, and the Minister is aware. He's changed the chairman, or rather the Treasury Minister.
You need to come to a question.
Because... Right, so is he satisfied, is he entirely satisfied that all of the checks and balances that were never envisaged at the start of moving effectively this policing role to the Harbour Master in this magnitude, because we're going to go on to discuss later issues as the scrutiny panel has said, is that to reallocate all of these issues, and would he consider will he consider in his further amendments in the third reading and maybe afterwards doing what his Assistant Minister said of actually potentially creating a hybrid where the Harbour Master can be fully, I understand he's before the Royal Court, but employed not by the Ports of Jersey, but employed as well by the State of Jersey for these very important issues, so that the maritime safety issues that we all care about can be dealt with, because there have been issues. Thank you, sir.
Minister.
So I just saw another deputy look like they wanted to speak. So, thank you, sir. It's a point of clarification. Effectively, I am not going to stand here and say that I am going to make great changes to Ports of Jersey Limited or to the Harbour Master's role as they stand at the moment. With a year, barely more than a year of this State's Assembly, I think it would be inappropriate for me to make such a commitment, because there's almost no chance of delivering that commitment in the time frame of this Assembly. I do hear the concerns around the fact that the Harbour Master is an employee of Ports of Jersey Limited. Do I think that? I think the truth is, I think those concerns are overblown. That's a reality. I don't think we have to worry about the Harbour Master and his loyalties. I believe the Harbour Master's loyalties as a sworn officer, sworn in by the Royal Court, sir. I believe the Harbour Master understands his role to Jersey and to the island of Jersey as opposed to his employer. But that said, it's always happy to open up new items of thinking and discussion. If there is a general sense that people wish the Harbour Master to be an employee of the Government of Jersey as opposed to the Ports of Jersey, that's something that can be explored by, we can start the exploration now, but would be completed by a subsequent minister. But it is not the question that is here today, sir. It is a side to this issue, sir. And as this law stands, the law that I'm asking the Assembly to pass here today, I am entirely satisfied that with the enforcement policy, with the Harbour Master being very loyal to the island of Jersey and sworn in by the Royal Court, and with continued engagement, not just with the Harbour Master, but also with the Harbours and Airports Committee, which is effectively a subcommittee of Ports of Jersey, that we can ensure that the Harbour Master has the right approach, has the right apparatus and right understanding to deliver these responsibilities entirely properly, sir.
Sir,
Connaughton?
I don't believe the Minister answered my question regarding whether the Harbour Master had the same powers as that of a centenier.
So it is correct. I apologise. I got caught up in this question and forgot the question. Effectively, the harbour master does have very similar powers. They're not exactly the same, but there's similar level of powers as the centenary.
Do you call for the appel? I do, sir. The appel is called for. Members are invited to return to their seats. I ask the greffier to open the voting. All members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. And I ask the greffier to close the voting. I announce that the law has been adopted in second reading. 42 votes for, no votes contra, and 1 abstention.
Deputy Joseph abstained.
I'll move on to third reading. Minister, how do you wish to propose the articles as adopted in second reading?
Yes, I wish to propose them in the third reading, sir.
Is the law seconded in third reading? Does any member wish to speak in third reading?
So first of all, just to thank the Minister and his officers for the briefings they gave us. That was really useful to have early sight of the legislation and to really be able to ask the questions in I won't say a leisurely manner, but in an informal setting, really, and to get good answers to that. Could the Minister speak to how he thinks that this piece of legislation that we're passing today will interact with the one that he's bringing later on in the year, and whether they're in fact two standalones, or in fact to what extent they should be seen as a body that serves the further end of issues, including maritime safety, sir, which have of course been on our minds with recent events.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member speak in third reading? I call upon the Minister. Deputy Joseph.
So I'm grateful for them, both the Chair of the Scrutiny Panel and the Minister, for their replies. I do think that there is an issue which I don't want to burden the Minister, but I do think there is a sufficient amount of concern. I saw a number of members, the penny dropped when I was trying to explain it. I don't want to create any extra work. I cast no aspersions on the work of the Harbour Master for the avoidance of any doubt, but sea safety is one that has had a really serious issue in Jersey on 2 occasions when the Minister and I were both in government, and he knows the sensitivity and the importance of this for those people who whose lives were lost, and so therefore we're dealing with something that's very sensitive, and I'm grateful for the Minister's responses, but I'd be grateful for the scrutiny panel's real testing of this in the next stages of this process, which is well, we granted them, so we need to move on, but we need to make sure that the checks and balances absolutely are right and the person's not put in an impossible position. That's my concern, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member speak in third reading? I call upon the Minister to reply. Minister.
Thank you, sir. I do hear Deputy Joseph. I do think Deputy Joseph's bringing his concerns at entirely the wrong place, sir. He's dealing with a much bigger, wider issue, one that he should have dealt with in 2015, in my opinion. It is one that is a question to be answered, like all questions are to be answered. But this is not what we are debating here today. The Deputy assented in 2015 to the creation of Ports of Jersey Limited, to it taking on those Harbour Master powers, or not, the company isn't, but to the Harbour Master being an employee of Ports of Jersey Limited. And it is perfectly reasonable to look over that again in the future, but we do that in the future. We don't do that here, sir. To Deputy Tadier, so these amendments, sir, have been designed to work in tandem with the joint objective of making Jersey waters safer. However, the amendments to the Shipping Jersey Law is a projet de loi. That's what we are dealing with here, sir, which requires royal assent. Whilst the amendment to the Harbour Inshore Safety Jersey Regulations 2012 is a projet de règlement, an update to regulations, which requires the vires contained within the updates of the shipping law in order to make those regulations, sir. Thus, P3, the one we have yet to debate, cannot be debated or adopted in the States until the Shipping Jersey Law amendments, this one, P4, have been adopted and sanctioned by HM in Council via royal assent. That's why we are dealing with them in the manner that we ask.
Do you seek the appel?
Yes, please, sir.
That has been called for. Members are invited to return to their seats, and the greffier is asked to open the vote. All members have the chance of casting their votes. And ask the greffier to close the voting. And the law has been adopted in third reading. 40 votes pour, no votes contra, and 1 abstention. The next item is a National Day for Jersey, P6, lodged by the Minister for International Development, and the main respondent is the Chair of the Economic and International Affairs Scrutiny Panel. Minister, there is an amendment lodged by Deputy Tadier. Are you minded to accept the amendment lodged to your proposition?
Yes, I am, but the Deputy has just indicated to me that he would like to take Clause C separately. But I am accepting the amendments, but he wants to speak on Clause C separately.
If you accept the amendments, then the amended proposition will have 3 separate paragraphs, and as proposer, you'll be entitled to ask the Assembly to take them separately. Is that what you wish to do?
I will be taking the vote separately, but I believe Deputy Tadier wants to speak to his amendment to propose it separately, but I'm accepting it, so I don't know quite how that works procedurally.
Well, either you're accepting it or you're not. But,
well, I am.
Yes,
so to be helpful, I think what normally happens is the Minister will say, I'm happy to accept them, and then but I would like to move Part C separately, so to have a debate on Part C, on the amendment of Part C.
Well, yes. So effectively, you're objecting to the proposition being taken as amended. If you want a separate debate, then effectively what you're doing is objecting to the proposition being taken as amended, which means there'll be a separate debate on your amendment. That's the only way of resolving this.
I think we're both in agreement. So I think the point that maybe needs to be made is that the Minister is accepting Part B, and although so she's happy, we're both happy for Part B to be accepted
yes.
and taken as amended to the main proposition.
Yes, but there won't be a separate debate on any part of your amendment if the amendment is accepted. There'll be a separate vote on it, but not a separate debate.
Sir, as a member of the Assembly, I can object to it being read
any
as
member
accepted.
Any member can object.
Sir, for the sake of it, I object to these being read as amended and would like
very
to
much.
be separately taken.
There's been an objection, and the amendment will be dealt with separately.
So can we just be clear? It's Part C. That's
no. There's an amendment. There will now be a separate debate on the whole of your amendment.
Yeah,
because
I
one
object to all
member
of
has
it being
objected.
read as.
So the greffier will read the proposition.
The states are asked to decide whether they are of opinion that Liberation Day should be adopted as Jersey's official national day.
Minister.
Well, I'll try and propose it. I'm still somewhat confused as to what I'm doing here, but anyway.
Let me help you. You're simply making your proposition as it originally stood.
Okay. Thank you, sir. As many members will know, I continue to lead the Island Identity Project, which seeks to strengthen Jersey's distinct cultural, economic and environmental identity, and to further the island's interest, profile and international reputation as an outward-facing island confident of its place in the world. The project looks to provide common focal points for Jersey's increasingly diverse population and to give us all a combined sense of belonging. And while we will always have more pressing matters to consider, it is essential to raise the importance of our island identity, or we ignore it at our peril. As stated, well, I would have been accepting Deputy Tadier's amendments to my proposition, so he will be taking those separately now. So I shall start by addressing my original proposition. Sir, I'm seeking members' support to formally recognise Liberation Day as Jersey's National Day, ahead of this year's Liberation 80 celebrations. And at this point, I think it's a good opportunity to make perfectly clear that if this proposition is adopted, the 9th of May would continue to be referred to as Liberation Day, just as other national days reflect their significance, such as Bastille Day, Independence Day, Veterans Day, Canada Day, and they are all national days. This proposition is not merely symbolic. It is a step towards strengthening our collective identity and fostering a deeper sense of unity within our community. A recent consultation has demonstrated overwhelming public support for this initiative. Of the 2,400 respondents, which I'm led to believe is a very good response to an island survey, an impressive 82% were in favour of adopting Liberation Day as our national day. This clear mandate from the people reflects the deep-rooted significance of the occasion in the hearts and the minds of islanders. Unlike many other nations, Jersey does not have an officially recognised national day. The Island Identity Report has previously identified this as a key gap in our efforts to strengthen our sense of community and belonging. Furthermore, research by the OECD has highlighted that Jersey exhibits lower levels of civic engagement when compared to similar jurisdictions. This finding underscores the need for a stronger shared identity, one that an official national day could help to cultivate. Liberation Day is already widely regarded as Jersey's de facto national day, but formalising this recognition is important for several reasons. First, it will strengthen community spirit by fostering a greater sense of belonging among islanders, regardless of their background. The values of freedom and resilience, which Liberation Day embodies, are universal and unifying. All highly relevant themes in today's world, I would suggest. Second, it will ensure the preservation of the historical significance as we move further away from the events of 1945. It is crucial to formally acknowledge the sacrifices made and the freedoms won, ensuring that future generations understand and appreciate this legacy. The 80th anniversary provides the perfect opportunity to cement this recognition. And finally, making Liberation Day an official national day will enhance Jersey's profile on the international stage. It will signal to visitors, dignitaries, and those who wish to engage with the island's history and culture that this day holds a special place in our national identity and deserves the status and recognition of a national day. I'll speak to Deputy Tadier's amendments after he's proposed them. So, sir, I would like to make the proposition.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Is the proposition seconded? Thank you. There is an amendment lodged by Deputy Tadier, and I ask the greffier to read the amendment.
Redesignate the existing proposition as paragraph A, and after the words National Day, insert the following. B, that alongside Liberation Day, the 28th of September should be adopted as Jersey's second National Day, and that Mon Pio Pitigeri should be adopted as the island's official anthem.
Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Sir, first of all, can I thank the Minister for moving the proposition and being very willing to engage on this issue. I know that these issues of cultural identity and just culture more generally are important to both of us, as they are, I think, to many in the Assembly and in the wider community. I'm sorry for what I was attempting to do today was actually to have a separate debate on the anthem, and I was quite pleased that the Minister would accept part B, sir, but I accept that it's not procedurally possible to do that, so I apologise for the short notice. I think it will possibly be helpful, ultimately, to get the Assembly's opinion on the amendment separately anyway, because ultimately this was going to be taken in 3 parts, so it means that we wouldn't have had the ability to consider the amendments separately, and they could have all been voted against anyway. I prefer them to be either I obviously prefer the amendments to be voted for, but if they are to be voted against, I prefer to know that before we get into the main debate, so we can know what we're talking about, whether we're looking at just Liberation Day being the national day for Jersey, which is something very new and I think possibly exciting, but no doubt contentious for some, or whether we're looking at it as more of a package, which with the amendments it would be doing. And I'd like to start, first of all, with the anthem for Jersey. And I'm very careful to use those terms because, of course, the Minister was very clear in her consultation that whilst it's okay for Jersey to have a national day, it's not okay for us to have a national anthem. And we'll maybe discuss that in the main proposition because we are, or sometimes a nation in our own right, but we are also part of the wider nation of Great Britain, of course. So, turning to the anthem parts, I was surprised to see initially that the Minister was not making a recommendation for us to adopt Beautiful Jersey or Mon Pio Pitigeri as Jersey's anthem. This appears to be, we're told in the report, because it only had 50% of respondents saying yes, so a 50-50 split. It feels to me, and the reason I put this amendment is that we would be missing an opportunity here not to debate the anthem for Jersey because it formed an integral part of that consultation. I think we've never had the opportunity, I don't think, certainly not in my time in it, to discuss whether or not A, we should have an anthem for Jersey, and B, what that anthem should be. But of course, the consultation did ask that question of people, and I think it's only right that we then reflect the consultation that took place and make a decision one way or the other now, today, and actually effectively put the matter to bed. Because we are in a strange position where, of course, the Council of Ministers have said, look, we don't want you to proceed, Minister. I suspect she would have been quite happy to propose Mon Pio Pitigeri as the anthem for Jersey, but she didn't have the support of the ministers and they didn't feel they could do it on a 50% response in a consultation. The point I would make, it wasn't a 50% response. It was actually, if we look at the numbers and split them, those who responded yes to Beautiful Jersey, and I'll use the titles interchangeably, they mean the same things, 1237 voted yes for Beautiful Jersey, and only 870 said no, that they didn't want Beautiful Jersey to be the anthem. So that's not 50%, that's much less, it's somewhere in the 30s, and of course 359 said they weren't sure. But even as a total, if you combine the no's and the unsures together, we've got 229. So in my maths, every time 1237 trumps 1229. And if this had been put to a referendum, even though it is a very slim majority, if this was Brexit, Brexit would have still happened with 0.16% of the votes. So I think the matter has been put to bed. And of course, yes, well trumped those who responded no. So I think there is a mandate, actually, for the Minister to be bringing this today, even if she doesn't have the support. And the other strange point is that although the Council of Ministers don't feel able to support this anthem being adopted, they are quite happy to tell sports clubs that they should play it, which I think is something of cognitive dissonance or a contradiction. They should either actually not give any instruction to sports clubs and say, you play what you like, you can play a bit of Queen, you can play a bit of the Proclaimers, depending on what you fancy, or you can play Man Normandie, or you can play Ireland Home, because, of course, without having made a decision either themselves, they seem to be incapable of making a decision on this, or the Assembly having been given an opportunity to make a decision on this, I don't think they should be in a position to give direction as to what tune might be played on the podiums or elsewhere. So let's look at the case for why it should be Mon Vieux Petit Géry. I think there is a case clearly for an anthem, and that's a political question. And the majority, as I've said, were in favour of that. Of course, it's self-selecting. Now, in my report on why we might wish to have an anthem and why it might be Mon Vieux Petit Géry, I looked at the word en Gébertie in Gérier, which is actually a new word. It's a neologism which was crafted by Dr. Kit Ashton, who's a student of Gérier in ethnomusicology. He's a Jersey person, and together with François Lemaitre, who's a mentor of an old Gérier speaker, if I can use that expression, a native Gérier speaker, they came up with this idea of en Gébertie. And he asks in his dissertation, which he did on Jersey culture, amongst other things, saying, how is your en Gébertie, which is pronounced as I've just said it? And the word can be translated as togetherness. The word is actually, which I said was invented by both of them, comes from the root word une gerbe, which is a sheaf of wheat, which is bound together. And Gébertie is the binding process. So what it means is that how we bind ourselves together all around. And this very much ties in with that idea of cultural identity, about island identity. And I've commented to the Minister separately. I think it's really important the fact she uses the word island identity rather than necessarily Jersey identity, because using that latter expression can, for some, be very exclusive. It can put up barriers saying that, well, you're Jersey, you're not Jersey. But if we accept the fact that we all live on the island together, we are all islanders and this is our home, then I think we're making good progress. So I do recognise the steps that she's already made in the framing of the wider debate. And in her main proposition, the Minister for International Development also recognises that the island anthem could provide a unifying way for islanders to connect with Jerseyness in a manner that is welcoming, accessible and inclusive. And in turn, this could foster long-term social benefits such as a stronger sense of community and belonging. So these are good arguments for an anthem. So why should it be Beautiful Jersey? So again, in his thesis, Dr. Kit Ashton explains the history of Beautiful Jersey. Interestingly, it wasn't written by a Jersey-born person. It was written by somebody called Lindsay Lennox, an Englishman who sometime before 1906, when the song became popular, it was translated into Gérier before the Second World War by Frank Lemaitre. So that's François Lemaitre's father, who I mentioned earlier. And since then, it has achieved cultural significance in Jersey, partly because it's publicly performed every year on the 9th of May, on Liberation Day, which celebrates the long-awaited official surrender of the Nazi-occupied forces, as we know. So the song Beautiful Jersey, Mon Vieux Petit Géry, it gained increased poignancy during the war years. With its romantic, and this is a quote, I think, with its romantic and patriotic lyrics sung in a rousing, overtly emotive and nostalgic vocal style typical of an early 1900 music hall ballad, passionate, extroverted, and employing a certain amount of vibrato. Well, it depends who's singing it, I guess. He goes on to make the case for it as an anthem for Jersey. So in somewhat esoteric terms, if I may say, he says, Beautiful Jersey started life as a pop song, and it has always been a people's anthem, so it has never been designated as the official anthem by the states of Jersey. But it has musical features consistent with anthems that emerge during periods of moderate or even low socio-political control relating to a socially diverse public. So again, that directly ties to the liberation and the occupation and why this song might have gained prominence during the occupation, especially the fact that it could be sung and was sung in Jeriye, a language not immediately understood by the Nazi occupiers. He goes on to say that this is characterized by the use of variable, dynamic, and embellished symbolic codes. This is the esoteric bit, by the way, just in case you didn't know. With the idea being that where the national audience subscribes to multiple foci, so multiple focuses, or foci, the characteristics of such an embellished code will be more effective at generating audience attention. I must try that sometime. So in other words, what he's saying is it's a catchy tune. It's a catchy tune that sprung up naturally, has popular support, and speaks to a wide cross-section of people on many different levels. It's the kind of song that makes an ideal anthem, perhaps. As a tune, I think Beautiful Jersey is highly suitable for a popular anthem for Jersey. It's both words in English and Jeriye. It has a variation between verse and chorus. It can be played classically or more rhythmically. A shortened version, a chorus, can be played as an abridged anthem, and singing is optional. The tune itself is strong enough and evocative enough, I think, with or without words, to pass muster as an anthem for Jersey. But let's face it, a bit like Liberation Day already being a de facto national day for Jersey, in reality, I think we all know that Beautiful Jersey already is Jersey's anthem. Hence why it's been sung at Liberation Days, I think, since 1995. And this amendment, sir, seeks to put that beyond doubt. So I do ask members if they can, and of course I'd like to hear what members think. There are going to be counterfactuals. Members are going to stand up and say we don't need a national anthem, or if we do need one, we don't need an anthem because we've got a national anthem. I've made the point that this is not that, or they might suggest a different song. But I think it would be really good if we could have members speaking on what they think, if they feel strongly about it one way or the other, to put that on record, because I think that's what's been denied us and denied the public up until this point, sir. So now I'll go back to the idea of why I would like to propose effectively that we have national days as opposed to necessarily Liberation Day becoming the national day. And so I'll start off, again, somewhat esoterically, grammatically, if you like, is what's the difference between a definite and indefinite article? Well, it's actually quite significant. It may sound as if it doesn't mean much. If we are to say that a Liberation Day becomes the national day, which is what we're potentially adopting here today, that then, of course, becomes the focal point. And I think it's absolutely right that Liberation Day should take precedence. It's an established holiday already. It's a public holiday. And it's well known in the minds of both locals, I think, and tourists who come to the island for Liberation Day. So the significance of Liberation Day is well understood. It's unsurprising that when the Minister asked the question, should Liberation Day be Jersey's national day, those who took part answered overwhelmingly yes, so it's 81%. I think later on we might want to look at the 19% who didn't say that, and some of the arguments maybe are quite interesting. But clearly, numerically, 81% is a great overwhelming endorsement, I think, for the Minister to be able to bring this. But in recent years, the prominence of the 28th of September has also started to capture the imagination of the public, I think, slowly, for its significance as a contemporary celebration of a very important and unique day in Jersey's constitutional history. Both days are important for different reasons, and I believe they both speak to different parts of modern-day Jersey. So both are very historically significant. Liberation Day represents the end of war, occupation, the banishing of a tyrant, and the restoration of liberty, peace, and freedom, all highly relevant themes today. On the other hand, there's nothing, I would argue, there's nothing uniquely Jersey about Liberation Day in a sense. I'm not criticising it, by the way, I'm just stating some facts. So many countries also mark the 9th of May as a national day, if not the national day in their country. And the European Union, for example, has the 9th of May as its national day. Meanwhile, Netherlands, Denmark, Norway also celebrate Liberation Days on days around this time but also to do with their liberations from Nazi occupation. So needless to say, Guernsey also celebrates Liberation Day on the 9th of May, so it's not going to be a uniquely Jersey day. Liberation Day is great for us, but it's not uniquely Jersey in that sense. Lots of other countries were liberated around that time, perhaps on the same day, on Liberation Day. But of course, that our Liberation Day is important is not disputed. It cannot be. But it's not uniquely Jersey. Of course, the way that Jersey experienced the occupation and therefore the liberation is unique to the island and of personal significance to those who lived through it, and of course, I think their descendants. But the Corn Riots is a bit different, and I'm not just looking at the Corn Riots here, I'm looking at the constitutional changes that happened after 1769, and then more significantly, we're talking about 1771, the Code Civil that came in, where it can be seen as a very significant day constitutionally for Jersey. So the Corn Riots represents a uniquely Jersey day. This is a day that you won't find anywhere else. There might have been corn riots elsewhere, but there wasn't a corn riot that led to these kind of deep-reaching separations of powers in one sense, but also constitutional change. That was the basis really for our modern-day jurisdiction, I'll use that, and also democracy. It can be seen as a coming of age for democracy in Jersey, with ordinary people standing up for themselves in a peaceful but forceful manner to demand a fairer, better system of government. And these themes of democracy, autodetermination, fairness, justice are also highly relevant today and highly complementary to those values of liberation. The Corn Riots is not simply a chance for celebration, music and culture, but also gives rise to Democracy Week, which is all tied in with the subsequent changes of that Code Civil of 1771, which was paramount in defining Jersey's legal and constitutional authority. The Code also played a key role in defining the relationship between Jersey's domestic institutions. It transferred legislative authority from the Royal Court to the States Assembly, creating a separation of powers between the judicial and legislative arms of government. And this is absolutely fundamental. That's why when we have the great work that the GREF does, not just during Democracy Week, but actually all year round, when social groups, civil society groups, but also young people come into our assembly, that's one of the first things we tell them about, is that that's the court over there, that's where the laws are interpreted, but this is where the laws are decided. This is where the voice of the people is given air. And of course, we do point out the mace. I've seen that on the many times that we've come here. So that relationship with the Crown, of course, is being reinforced in the Code of 1771. So the change introduced a cornerstone of modern democratic principles to Jersey. The Code also formalised the mechanisms of legislation. Going forward, laws were to be passed by the states, confirmed by the Sovereign in Council, and registered in the Royal Court before promulgation. This process allowed for local appeal, and more importantly, it meant that legislation did not come into effect until the Crown's assent. So I'm not going to go right back into the background of how we got to the point of the 28th of September being recognised, but we must remind ourselves that there is an existing commitment that has been made that the 28th of September should be recognised annually by the States of Jersey as the anniversary of the Corn Riots. That was a decision that we made, and also to agree that the events of the 28th of September and the subsequent democratic reforms of 1771 would be added to the citizenship curriculum in schools. So that's happened. It is something that forms part of our island identity. It is taught in schools. That's not been rescinded, and I don't think it should be either. And that on the 28th or around the 28th, both institutions of the Royal Court and the States Assembly are open to the public. So it's both a weekend of celebration, a day of increasing, I hope, celebration, but also something of an education opportunity, not just for young people, but for the wider population. So with all this in mind, it's clear that there exists this commitment from us as a States Assembly to recognise the Corn Riots annually, to mark the events of 1769 annually. The day now forms part of all of that programme I've talked about, And for added clarity, this amendment does not seek to make the 28th either a public or a bank holiday, simply an additional national day, with continued cultural and constitutional significance. I'll address that point now, actually, because I've been quite worried that the hares have been set running. So you sometimes get feedback, and I've had a lot of feedback, most of it positive, actually, saying, yeah, this is great. In fact, prior to this, I was getting lots of messages from local bands, but people who also wanted to know if they could book the weekend off or clear some time so that they could prepare to start coming to the corn riots and make a weekend of it. And I've said, well, yeah, I'm sure that's going to happen. I think the case for it having caught the public imagination is quite clear. So what was quite frustrating is that I then get people contacting me saying, we don't agree with your proposition to make corn riots a bank holiday. And I'm saying, well, that's interesting because I'm not proposing that. And it's even been published in the reporting in the paper was quite clear. My report is quite clear. And I was scratching my head to find out where this was coming from. I even got some I don't think they were abusive, but one email was quite robust saying it's absolutely not, it can't be a bank holiday. I said, well, that's great because I'm not proposing that either. I'm simply saying it should be a national day, but not a bank holiday. And then I start talking to a couple of the constables, and I said, why are people saying it's a bank holiday? Why is the word going out around the island I'm proposing a bank holiday when I'm not? They said, it will be a bank holiday. I said, no, that's absolutely not what's being proposed here. We can have days of national importance, like the air display, like the Battle of Flowers, which hopefully will happen this year in a scaled-down form and get back to basics. Those are not those are not bank holidays. They're not public holidays. It doesn't stop them being of cultural significance to the island, and eventually, they may also be part of the wider portfolio of national days that we have in the island. So this is simply saying, actually, that we've already made a decision around this to make it important, and a national day is not a legal construct, I don't think. The Minister's not moving any new legislation here. She's just saying that make Liberation Day a national day, make the corn riots a national day. And of course, there will be other contenders that come forward and point out the fact that our island status, our nationhood, if you like, our special relationship constitutionally with the Crown, or even the way we existed before that, those are all potential dates for national days as well. Of course, it's much more difficult to pin down an exact day the further you go back in time. So one suggestion I had was that why not 1204? I'm sure we could find a day around 1204, and it's absolutely correct. Well, it's partly correct because, of course, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors around 1204, actually. These constitutional changes didn't happen specifically. It's historically true. They didn't happen specifically bang on a particular day in 1204. There was a great period of actual turbulence and decision-making back and forward, and then looking at who benefited, etc. But ultimately, of course, that is the date that we've chosen. So the year is probably not correct, absolutely. That's certainly when King John lost the lands in France, but it's not the exact year when Jersey made its constitutional changes. So to pinpoint an exact day in 12,004 when it didn't happen anyway is going to be much more difficult, but I'm sure we could do it. And I'd be up for that because I think there were various signposts through Jersey's long history. And even before it became a possession of Normandy, of course, it was had strong links with Brittany. And of course, we know the standing stones that we see all throughout Jersey are testament to the fact that there was a pre-religious and a pre-Norman period that existed in our island. So maybe we should have 365 days that are national days, except on a leap year, of course. So I do make the case that there are countries around the world which are much more comfortable in their national identity, and even regional areas. And I look to, I heard, strangely enough, the Newcastle team, which to my wife's chagrin beat Liverpool only last week in the League Cup on ITV. I think most Liverpool supporters were quite magnanimous. They were quite pleased that Newcastle had some silverware, some much needed silverware in their cabinet. And the national ITV news readers,
may you give way for point of
it is relevant, sir.
Point of clarification on the football, I hope.
So would he clarify that not all Liverpool supporters agree with him on that point about Newcastle having silverware, sir?
I think Newcastle do have silverware. Whether it's seen as a good thing or not, I think is another matter. In my experience, Liverpool supporters tend to be a bit more magnanimous than supporters of some other clubs, but we won't go into that today, sir. The point I was making is that this ITV reporter said that there was great celebration happening in the nation of Newcastle, which I'd never heard that expression used, or he might have even said in the Geordie nation. I think he said the nation of Newcastle. And it shows that these ideas that we have sometimes of nationhood being specifically linked to a particular geographical country are not shared everywhere. So when I was at the recent conference in Kosovo, for example, their idea of nationality is completely different. An anthem wouldn't work in Kosovo because they see themselves as ethnically national rather than necessarily their nationhood be conferred on them by a particular geographical or political state. So, for example, you get ethnic Albanians who might, prefer to sing an Albanian national anthem, for example. But we look at places like Scotland, and Scotland has, I think, an official national day. It's certainly got its saint name of St Andrew's Day, which is on the 30th of November. I had to look up when St Andrew's Day was. But Burns Night is much more common. I pretty much could have told you that Burns Night happens at the end of January, and it's not an official national day in Scotland, but it is an important day, I think, for many Scottish people, but not just for Scottish people. I mean, we went out and made sure that we bought our neeps and tatties and our haggis. We didn't have any whiskey this time because we wanted to stay sober. It was something that is celebrated far beyond Scotland, and it's well known to be part of the core now. Whether it's universally celebrated up there, I don't know, but it's part of Scotland's identity. And in the same way that I think Liberation Day, but also the Corn Riots, can be part of Jersey's cultural identity, it can more importantly be part of our offering to those wishing to move to the island or to come to the island as tourists. And so in a practical sense, when I'm thinking about this, looking at both sides of the calendar, and in the summer, you've got Liberation Day, which falls perfectly on the 9th of May. It's a time when tourists are starting to come over anyway. But as you get into the end of September, the beginning of October, that's also a period that we should be looking to encourage tourists to come to the island, because actually these are both great periods for visiting our island. And of course, event-led tourism was a big buzzword, I remember, in the 2005-2008 senatorial elections, when minister after minister, pretenders for the position of Economic Development Minister or Treasury Minister, were all saying how important event-led tourism were for the island, sir. So I'm going to sit down now because I've said enough. I hope that I've made the case, at least, for why we might wish to have an anthem for Jersey, why that anthem might be Beautiful Jersey, and also why members could, and I hope should, be open to the idea of having national days existing in the island. And it doesn't need to be something that should be a big area of contention. It's just something that we could be comfortable doing, let it develop organically, and see how the public respond to the fact that we've backed some important dates in our calendar, which could, of course, be added to, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Is the amendment seconded? Yes, sir. Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. And this is very interesting. Well, it's an interesting debate. I think the Deputy's made a good case for a National Day about a cultural event, a very important cultural event in our history. The Corn Riots as an additional day, I suppose that is a valid point. And then we got into the subject of an anthem, and it was very interesting, actually. And so I went to bed too early last night. At 4:30, about 5 o'clock this morning, when the sun was glinting through the curtains and I could hear the birds singing outside, I was led there thinking about an anthem for Jersey for some reason. I was thinking, well, we have to compare with other songs, and I started to go through my head as to what other songs we might have, and obviously, so there are, and it's all about the lyrics. It's all about, and there are a plethora of songs from the wondrous Billy Bragg, but they might not be. For some reason, something from Must I Paint You a Picture came into mind. The temptation to take the precious things we have apart to see how they work must be resisted, for they'll never fit together again. And I thought that's a little depressing. So we won't go into that one. And then for some reason I thought perhaps Deputy Southern is a great fan of Tom Waits. There wasn't a single song I find there, actually, sir. And then I thought, from the Deputy's speech this morning, he said something about being romantic and rousing. Well, I have to admit, I'd written arousing. I crossed that out. Romantic and... Sorry about that. Apologies for that one. Romantic and rousing. And I thought that everyone... And he actually said that singing is optional. Well, I think we need an anthem, sir, where singing isn't optional, everyone wants to join in. I know one song I always join in with is from the wonderful, the King himself. So if I may mention Elvis Presley, obviously, which is The Wonder of You. It says, when no one else can understand me, when everything I do is wrong, you give me hope and consolation. You give me the strength to carry on. You're always there to lend a hand with everything I do. That's the wonder of you. And that's an anthem, sir. That's a wonderful anthem. But in the end, sir, I settled on a suggestion that I would like to make, which is from a poet, a wonderful poet, whose biography I just read, actually. It's a fantastic book, absolutely fantastic biography, incredible life he's led. And it's actually put to music by the Arctic Monkeys. I'll explain to some of you who they are later. And it's I Want to Be Yours by the wonderful John Cooper Clarke, Dr. John Cooper Clarke. He's got credibility for his work as well. I want to be your vacuum cleaner, breathe in your dust. I want to be your Ford Cortina, I will never rust. If you like your coffee hot, let me be your coffee pot. You want to call the shots, babe, I just want to be yours. And there's one other line you could have here. Secrets I have held in my heart are harder to hide than I thought. Maybe I just want to be yours. I want to be yours. I want to be yours. What a wonderful anthem that would be. I can envisage us all singing that before a football game, tears rolling down our eyes, commitment to the land itself. So, sir, seriously, I have no problem with the anthem that the Deputy is suggesting, but I think it needs to have the content of some of these wonderful songs from the past, which I'm sure we all know. And it's an absolute pleasure, sir, to quote the legendary Dr. John Cooper Clarke in this assembly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir. Can I start on the subject of the anthem? And I wholeheartedly support everything the Deputy has in his report. As I read it, I found that the thoughts I'd had before reading his report were just there. It's an anthem which we can sing in 2 languages. We don't need to sing it. We can play it and recognise it. More importantly for me, we can use the chorus as a short 35, 40-second end of a really important, or start of a really important sporting fixture. Sing it with gusto, sing it a bit more slowly, get some enthusiasm going. It gets my 100% support. National days. So growing up as a very young boy in a very strict Methodist household, important day in the year was Good Friday, and certainly that's something which I held true all the way through my teenage 20s and in my working career. But as a teenager here in Jersey, the most important day for me by far was Liberation Day, and how I hark back to those wonderful days of being able to go down to the harbour in the morning and get on the mail boat as a sort of a 13, 14-year-old and go to Guernsey for the day and watch the Marathi. I could never understand, sir, why the Marathi fixture got taken away from Liberation Day. It was the two seemed synonymous to me. So Liberation Day has always been important, and I have to say to the Deputy, I have to admit, and I have to be embarrassed, that until I came into this Assembly, and until really 2020, 2021, I had no knowledge of corn rights. I didn't identify, we talk about island identity, I didn't identify with the corn rights at all. But I accept now that they are important, very important parts of our island history, the movement of constitutional power from a building a little bit further west into the States Assembly, And since 2021, we've recognised it. I don't want to talk too much about bank holidays. I think I may have been one of those few that thought that it was going to be a bank holiday. It certainly was in 2021, and we've had a couple of years off since then. But I don't want to go back into that. But anyway, 1771 Corn Riots. Getting back to Methodism, 1775, the start of Methodism in Jersey, and this year, next month, we're going to celebrate 250 years of Methodism in Jersey. I'm not proposing for a minute that some date in April becomes a national day, but Methodism has had a huge part to play in this island, particularly in the countryside, since those days. But let's go forward another 6 years from 1775 to 1781 in the Battle of Jersey. It's not a date where you would particularly try to attract tourists to the island on the 6th of January. And look at the Constable of St. Blas. Granville have their Mardi Gras. They have a peculiar time of the year. It's a great success, but you can't guarantee the weather. But anyway, Battle of Jersey, something I've certainly took a lot more part in the last few decades. I've walked from every corner of the island into town on the required day, stood on Westmount and come down into the square outside for the reenactment. So I have to say to the Deputy, while I accept that it's an important day in our history, I really am not sure about making it a national day above others which are still to be made national days. And I'm not 100% convinced by this, but I'll see how the debate goes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Conor St. John.
Thank you, sir. So they say every day is a school day, and today I think I've learnt why Deputy Ward is a drummer and not a singer.
So I'm sure there's a standing order against that. That's an outrageous comment.
So I rise to speak in support of Deputy Tadier's amendment to adopt an anthem for Jersey, and I do so predominantly on behalf of sportsmen and women across the island. As the report in the proposition states, there is a need for a Jersey anthem to be used at sporting and cultural events where Jersey are represented independently. On occasion, embarrassment has been caused when our athletes win medals and stand proudly on the podium, with no one knowing what should be played to recognise their achievement on behalf of their island. The Island Identity Report also highlighted that an island anthem could provide a unifying way for islanders to connect with Jerseyness in a manner that is welcoming, accessible and inclusive. In turn, this could foster longer-term social benefits such as a stronger sense of community and belonging. So many of our competitors compete on an international stage. Indeed, later today we have a cricket team, Jersey Farmers, who will be competing in Spain in the finals of the European Cricket Championships. I am sure that the Jersey supporters there today will be singing their hearts out, as they always do, to beautiful Jersey, and I'd ask members to join me in wishing the team every success. So today it's a club side, but also when Jersey cricket play in ICC international matches, anthems are played before the game, and again organisers use the tune Beautiful Jersey. Later this year, sir, Jersey will once again take part in the Island Games. Wouldn't it be good if it was the first Games that we had officially adopted Beautiful Jersey as our anthem for Jersey, an anthem that islanders can fully get behind? So Beautiful Jersey has been played at every Island Games since at least 2011. Probably the highest standard that island sports people can represent Jersey is the Commonwealth Games, sir. And I understand that since 2010, following a vote of the Jersey Commonwealth Games Council, Beautiful Jersey has again been used at both the Games and the Commonwealth Youth Games so as to mirror the Island Games. As Deputy Tadier stated in his amendment, as a tune, Beautiful Jersey is highly suitable for a popular anthem for Jersey. And as Deputy Luce explained, both the English and Jerrier versions. I believe, sir, that Beautiful Jersey already is Jersey's anthem, and the amendment seeks to put the question beyond doubt. So I'm aware of the competition that was held in 2008 to find an anthem and the declared winner, Island Home. An interesting concept of inclusion and consultation were a panel of 5, selected by who I don't know, each had a vote, with the 600 plus members of the audience sharing just one vote. To say the result was controversial would be an understatement. Whilst acknowledging the musical quality of the piece, it wasn't, and still hasn't, proved to be popular. The audience at the Opera House and the wider Ireland community were, shall I say, more than a little disappointed then as they are now. Sir, Ireland Home simply hasn't been adopted as our Ireland anthem, and I've been at sporting events where it has been played, and Islanders have simply looked bemused. So the general public were asked in the recent consultation their view on adopting Beautiful Jersey, and we had 1,237 people said yes, 870 people said no, with 359 unsure. I'd ask members to get behind adopting the anthem. This would enable it to be the official Jersey anthem in time for our liberation celebrations in 48 days' time. So whilst I wholeheartedly support the need for an anthem and the adoption of Liberation as our National Day, I still need a lot of convincing about the adoption of 28th September as a second National Day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honourable. Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. And I'm glad to follow the previous speaker, because this is one where I could take it or leave it, because this feels like I'd want to say now we're debating the important things, but I really don't feel like we are. To stick to this amendment, I actually spoke to Deputy Taddeo about the options in his amendment, and unfortunately, the way I read it is we can't choose a national day in this. We can either choose to have 0 Liberation Day or Liberation Day and the Corn Rights. We can't say we want the Corn Rights, but we don't want Liberation Day, which is something I'll explain I don't think is appropriate for Jersey in the main debate. So Corn Rights, I could have taken it, leave it. I think we should celebrate it. I think we should find days we can celebrate our heritage, our history. But again, we have to take it with Liberation Day, so I'll talk to that in the main debate, regardless of where this falls. To the song, Deputy Taddeo gave some great musical theory. However, members may still be slightly forgetful of the song, so if he could, in his summing up, just remind us how it goes. Anyone sitting on the fence will perhaps feel different. And Deputy Rob Ward gave some interesting other examples. And frankly, I spoke to a few people about this. Most people didn't think this should be the top of our agenda as an assembly, but one suggestion for a song to represent Jersey was Big Yellow Taxi by Joni Mitchell, covered by Counting Crows. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? You paved paradise to put up a parking lot. I think that sums up the challenges we have in Jersey as our identity, more than sometimes just looking to the past. We always have to look to the future. My version might replace parking lot with 3 horizon blocks, but take it or leave it for your choice. I don't know why really we have to debate this now. I think there's a lot we could debate, and so I leave it there, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Recently, I've been dipping in and out of a book called Politics, A Survivor's Guide, for a number of reasons. And it mentions something about national pride and distinguishing it from nationalism. And one is coming together, which the Deputy has mentioned in his report that Dr. Kish Ashton has described in Gerrier's Angerbethi, as opposed to a cause for divisiveness. So when it comes to paragraph C and the adoption of a national anthem, and that thinking about the components, I would say that it does help if it encourages an element of sentimentality and bits are easy to remember. It is rather challenging of Deputy Alex Curtis to suggest that the Deputy remind him of the Song of the States when he's not allowed to sing in the States Chamber, but it does have a rhythm, da 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 da, if anybody can't remember. Now, recently, I had occasion to...
Deputy Scott, you need to stop. Sorry, we're in quorum.
Okay.
Perhaps members could return to the Assembly. Yes, you can resume now. We're now quorum, aren't we? You can now resume. Deputy.
Sir, I would like the thought that the threat of me singing didn't drive members away from the States Chamber. So I recently attended an occasion that was hosted, it was in Granville. It was part of the Twinning Association, a Twinning Association event of my constituency, St Brelard. And I had occasion for envy because there are all these different, now Granville twins with so many different towns that I really think that you could accuse of polygamy, sir. But but they all were at this event, and at one point they played all their different anthems or associated with their countries. And they started off with Granville itself, which has this song, La Granvillaise, which I can't sing, and I will try to capture the rhythm. And it's pretty catchy. I could get into this. C'est la Granvillaise, flair de la Falaise. Wow, you know. Then they came to Jersey. What did they play? Man Normandy. It's like the losing song in the Eurovision Song Contest. And the words aren't even about this island. They're not saying I love this island. They're talking about a region that's much bigger than ours. Now, Man Beau Petit Géry is less lively, but it's still catchy. And dare I even confess that it does bring tears to my eyes when I actually try to sing it sometimes. And here's one of the challenges, you see. I think we need to have a stance on the language in which it should be sung first. I have been a student of Cherrier, and it is pretty tricky singing it in Cherrier even now. And in fact, the people, the adorable guests in Granville even invited me to sing it to the assembled crowd, which I declined for their good and mine. The thing about Cherrier is it has lots of, it's based on it includes lots of ellipticisms. So where in French they might say je suis, generally we say je suis, she instead. And vowels get reintroduced where you have three consonants together in a row. And how people speaking this work this out, well, that's a different challenge. I think you have to practice it lots and lots and lots. So there is a challenge singing it in Cherrier. So when it comes to the actual ability to have people adopt it and really sing it, I think there's a lot of work to be done. We've got to, what order do you suggest people sing it? Do you have a go at singing English or... Anyway, that's a point for a different time. And yes, we do know it was written by an Englishman. Anyway, I do believe that the Deputy has given a reasoned case based on public consultation. When I turn to paragraph B and the second National Day, there seems to have been a different process here because and then I totally accept that the date of the Corn Rights is a date of historical significance. I note somewhat ironically that the States Assembly supported it being recognised by the title of Reform Day, which I think, given there's a political party by that name, could give some cause for confusion. But it is a really important day in the history, a day to celebrate the advancement of social justice when islanders rose against an abuse of power and resulting constitutional amendments were made, albeit on another day. Were these riots peaceful? That's debatable, but it's certainly, and the 1771 Code was historically significant. Is it the first historical event of significance mentioned in the island's history to visitors? Well, somebody wrote to the JP just recently suggesting that a possible or even more important day of significance was the day that the island was granted independence from the UK by King John of England. But the simple point is we haven't had this backed by consultation. So I, like others who've expressed an opinion, do question whether it's appropriate to introduce that now, and also whether you need celebration to celebrate the day, because might it not be like Burns Night, albeit without being confronted with a haggis? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Joseph.
Thank you, sir. Just trying to get my remarks. Bear with me, sir. Sorry, I beg your pardon, sir. I would like to address the Assembly, if I may, in our native language. If I can get my words out. I would like to start by saying, sir, nous sommes pas un peuple sans histoire, mais un peuple avec le temps de se mouvoir et dont des voix de l'entendre. That in the French is a translation of a well-known Jersey saying that is really quite important. I'm going to get my technology right, sir. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Right, there we go. Nous sommes un peuple sans histoire, mais un peuple d'un temps de se mouvoir et dont les voix d'entendre. Nous sommes pas un peuple sans histoire, mais un peuple avec les moments à se commémorer et des voix de faire entendre. We are not a people without history, sir, but a people with times to remember and voices to make heard. J'ai ri un matin l'occasion de choir un pour l'âme, mais faut-il nous faisons son jardin dans les sabots. Jersey a maintenant l'occasion de choisir un jour de l'âme, mais il faut nous le faisons avec réflexion et le non allergie. Jersey now has the chance to choose a day, sir, for the soul, but let it not do so without due reflection, nor without looking properly into our souls and our shoes. So Liberation Day, so central to this proposition, was not always the grand unifying commemoration that we now know. It took decades for that to happen, and I'm looking back onto the back row because I know that it was a former post-toller as bailiff, Sir Philip Balash, in I think the 1980s, who brought the solemnity and the public dignity that day now carries. Prior to that, there was only events around the parishes, and there was not that national day. So the underlying proposition I agree with, and these are in the context of the remarks about the contents of Deputy Tadier's amendment. The issue about there's no doubt, of course, that Liberation Day now carries that solemnity, and we celebrate with great enthusiasm, sir, the 80th anniversary, but that's maybe an issue for the main debate. The issue about whether or not we should adopt the Corn Riot Day as the secondary day, I think is not been the subject of any particular consultation. We haven't actually asked anybody. If we were to be here in this assembly in 1935, my understanding is that that day that the deputy, the Minister for Environment, the deputy of St Martin, Greville and St Martin and Greville, thank you. There's some deputy of St Martin and Greville referred to, which was the Battle of Jersey. I this year attended the Battle of Jersey, sir, commemoration in the Royal Square. We did the walk from the Parish Hall of St Martin's, and we walked through those places and we reflected on Westmount, and it was a really great day. I know it was January, and I think I was the only elected member there. I make no criticism of that because I haven't done them before. I know the Constable of St Helier has been a really important driving force by marking the Battle of Jersey Day. Maybe we're embarrassed to say that was the last time the French invaded us, so I'm not sure. But basically, my understanding is that the Battle of Jersey commemoration was effectively really important in Jersey prior to those dark years of occupation. Deputy Tazzin's enthusiasm for cultural identity is undoubtedly correct and sincere. I will comment also on the Minister who's bringing this underlying proposition. Her absolutely brilliant work on Jersey identity has not something that we've had the opportunity of celebrating and actually saying thank you to the Minister for what she has been doing, because it's a work that is very important, I think. I don't always agree with everything, but that's democracy. But she's doing a great job and getting all the other things. We'll talk about that later. We must ensure, I think, that any National Day consideration is made through proper thought and proper consultation. The people were asked about Liberation Day to be our National Day. They were not asked about the second one. And on the matter of beautiful Jersey, mon petit Jersey, it's undeniably beloved. It's sung annually, no doubt about it. I'd welcome the comments of the individual who I know was at the driving force of the other anthem that never kind of caught on. And I think it's important. I know it stopped short the proposition of saying it's our national anthem. If I may say so, the United Kingdom's national anthem, which is sung properly, contains one line that I believe is very important to Jersey people. I don't think it's in the first verse. I think it's the second verse. Often not sung, but we like singing it in Jersey, sir, because it said, may he, formerly she, defend our laws. That's not merely a lyric, it's an expression of our constitutional contract we hold as a Crown dependency. If we're to elevate beautiful Jersey to the anthem status, maybe please consider, sir, adding an additional verse, maybe a first verse, to ensure that that enshrines our allegiance to the Crown, the rule of law, the shared civic values, and that would be a fitting step forward. And maybe Dr. Kit Anthony, delighted he's got his doctorate, I think I've got that right, could basically help us with the construction of a third verse. National anthems have third verses, so I'm happy to go along with it, but I want to hear Deputy Tadia summing up. I would caution against adopting any anthem without ensuring that it's a really uniting paragraph that says what our identity really is about. And as rightly said, through consensus, let us honour Liberation Day, but let us remain also open to enriching our civic tradition. You're the civic head of Jersey, sir. I've never known really what that is. It's not stated out in the statute, I don't think. But we must always ensure that we do marking of national identity, national days, not a word that's not used in these parts for quite a long time. They use it in the Isle of Man. They use national quite a bit, sir. We don't use that in Jersey a lot, but maybe we can in the future as we develop. I was delighted to hear some opening remarks in the original proposition, which is relevant to the amendment, that was in the film that was done when we did the £100 note. And I know that who wrote that, and it was very pleased when we did that. It wasn't quantitative easing, it was QE to mark the, we weren't printing money. But there were lots of symbols of nationalism, sir. We've got our flag. Nobody's mentioned the flag. We've got also not only the flag, we've got an under issue. I haven't brought forward an amendment, but I say, sir, I will petition you, sir, or the bailiff, to ensure that the Jersey flag has its winter option, which is a pennant, which also can be flown from all flags. It's fantastic to see the Jersey flag flying, sir. The bailiff's protocol is being respected, sir. I'm delighted to see it. The largest flag ever grown is supposed to be on the Fort Regent, and I bought one after my father's stomping here when he came here for Liberation Day. Our flag is our part of identity, but so is the Union Jack. And so I say those words very respectfully to the amendment. I don't think I'm persuaded to have the corn riots without a consultation, and I'm happy to have mon petit Jerry. I've got the words for it if members want, sir. It was done by François Lemaitre. Mon petit Jerry, mais l'île chérie, dans la petite cour, il porte un chéchi. Dans le temps qu'il la pense, il a vieille. I won't carry on, sir. We've got it. I can send it. I can send the words around it. À la Sarleveille, en en vérité, she, Mr. President, je ne sais pas. I'm not sure whether they're going to be here this afternoon, but I'll sit down. But I hope my remarks have been at least informative and one of the only people that's spoken Jersey French in this assembly so far.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Palash.
So I think this is an interesting debate and actually more relevant than the 3 days we spent on senators. So I'm pleased to speak to the amendments of Deputy Tadier because many of the sentiments that he expressed I absolutely share. And it's a little sad for me, I think, that I'm unable to support any of the amendments that he has actually brought. We're talking about the cultural identity of Jersey. We are not part of Hampshire or part of England. We have our own characteristics, and I always think that one of the most important characteristics of a Jersey person is a stubborn independence and a refusal to do what one is told to do. Tell a Jersey person to do something and he'll usually do the opposite. So the 28th of September 1769 was a day of a riot. It's true that it was a significant riot in the sense that it led to ultimately to the exclusive jurisdiction of this assembly to make laws, and it removed the legislative authority of the royal court. But the day was just one step, one of a number of steps along the road to autonomy which we have travelled. Arguably, the most important step on that road to autonomy was taken in 1204, when the constitutions of King John were issued, and the autonomy which the island enjoys, its ability to be governed by its own laws and its ability to have its own administration separate from that of England, were conferred by the king. If we were to acknowledge another day, apart from Liberation Day, it seems to me that that would be a much more appropriate one to choose. But my real reason for not supporting this particular amendment is that it seems to me that it would diminish the importance of Liberation Day. We can really only have one national day, and if we are going to have a national day, it must be Liberation Day. That's the day that most islanders feel is the most significant one for the island, and it's the one, it seems to me, we should celebrate without muddying the water by adding another day to it. The anthem is more difficult, and I personally think that the Council of Ministers has taken the right decision in electing to take this slowly, to choose to approve the use of Beautiful Jersey on occasions that the Constable of St. John has identified. And I see no objection to that in the slightest. But dignifying it as our national anthem or our anthem, local anthem, or whatever we like to call it, seems to me to be a bridge too far. It's true that Island Home has not bedded in as the appropriate anthem to use. It's perhaps a little bit too hymnal to engage public acceptance. I was quite interested by an idea expressed in the Jersey Evening Post by one of its correspondents who suggested that one should take a tune, and he actually suggested the tune of Ma Normandie, and commission a competition to put words to that particular tune. It need not be Ma Normandie, it might be another tune. But the context of an anthem seems to me that it should be uplifting, inspirational, generating pride in who we are, all those characteristics which make a good national anthem. I think one of the best is La Marseillaise, actually. It makes the blood course through the veins when one hears it. Beautiful Jersey ticks some of those boxes, but not all of them. And even if one takes the survey as being representative of public opinion, it's really hardly a ringing endorsement of Beautiful Jersey as the anthem to be adopted. 1,237 people voted in favour, 870 people voted against, and 359 were unsure. The negatives and the unsure add up to 1,229, which is more or less the same as the 1,237 people who supported it. It seems to me that to approve an anthem, we need to have a little more enthusiasm than a kind of halfway house like that. I thank Deputy Tadier for his amendments, and I'm sorry that I'm not able to support either of them.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Can I thank Deputy Tadier for bringing this amendment? I thought his speech was really interesting, and it's very thought-provoking to consider all of the issues that it raises, and it's a good opportunity to reflect on Jersey's, I would say, very rich musical heritage. So as a proud member of the heavy metal sub-community, I take great pride when I go off-island to heavy metal events and get talking to people and get to tell them that some of Iron Maiden's best material was written in Jersey, as they would rent out a hotel at Corbière over the winter to write some of their best songs. The Number of the Beast album was written here, the Peace of Mind album was written here. And I was thinking of some of their lyrics to think if there were any with particular relevance to Jersey that I could mention in this debate, but sadly I think I've come to the conclusion that quoting them would probably be against standing orders, given the type of themes that they cover. But locally, sir, there's obviously lots of, I would say, great contenders for songs that could unite the island, beyond just that referred to in the wording of this amendment. Proud to Be a Bean by Sergeant Pippin's Lonely Hearts Club Band would surely have to be a contender, sir. That song refers to all of Jersey's parishes, but of course it does so equally, so perhaps could be accused of gerrymandering, especially after the last few days of debate, so perhaps not. So there is, of course, Jersey Mon Vie by Hedley LeMaitre, which was one I used to take great pride in listening to when I was a student at university, although none of my compatriots there had the faintest clue what any of it was about, but I guess that's kind of one of the things that makes it special. I have to say I have a soft spot for a particular song. I hope it doesn't embarrass Deputy Tadier to raise this, but Bad Lebec's Little Green Shoots I thought was a fantastic contribution. They produced that for the campaign to save the headland at Plymouth, which was a campaign that at the time I actually wasn't that keen on, but have retrospectively been converted to it and think it was the right thing to have done at the time. But there was a particular line in that song that struck me at the time as that campaign was gaining ground, the line was sung in English. Unfortunately, I can't remember the exact words of it, but it referred to asking the rich in Jersey to pay their fair share to make this an even more special place for everyone, which I thought was great to have included that in that. But sir, and I apologise for getting a bit soft at this point, I have to say I will always fall to the side of Beautiful Jersey, for one very simple reason. And I remember, sir, when I was a student at university, having a great time in London, but I would come back to Jersey. Often I would get a flight back here just before dusk, and I'd look out the window, and on the horizon there I would see Jersey, the beautiful gem of the sea that my heart had been longing for when I wasn't here, always wanting and waiting forward to that moment when I came back. And for all of the objections raised by Deputy Balash just now about what boxes a song may or may not tick, I think you've got to go with your heart at the end of it. And the themes in that song invoke that within me, remind me why I'm so lucky to be from this place, forgetting about all of the politics and everything else that goes with it. And at the end of the day, if you can't really muster a better explanation for it than just how you feel inside, I think that's actually the best explanation for it, and that's why I support the amendment.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy War.
I fear that after all that wonderful eloquence and waxing lyrical, I'm going to ground this a bit. I'm pleased to hear Deputy Alex Curtis' commentary about the business community, because right now we have a Liberation Day, which is a bank holiday, and obviously, dare I say it, encourages double pay to all staff. I'm sure Deputy Mezig will be very pleased to hear that. But on top of that, we have other holidays or semi-holidays, Battle of Flowers, Battle of Britain, well, Battle of Flowers, who knows where that's going, Battle of Britain. We've got, days we've been talking about here today, Battle of Jersey, the 1204. There's so many days which we can pick out. As much as they don't become bank holidays inherently, what happens is they become holidays, de facto holidays. And so I know in our business, half our business basically shuts down on the afternoon of Battle of Britain, which may be not a bad thing, but what it means is there are wages being paid out and no revenue stream. And that happens with the other days as well. So I think we must always bear in mind the economic impact of sharing days around and increasing numbers of days. I know Deputy Tadier, when he was asked about the corn riots and having a bank holiday, I think on a particular anniversary, you were told by the government that it was going to cost between 15 and 17 million pounds. It was a big number. Anyway, it was a big number. I know when the King and Queen visited the island, it was tended to a bank holiday. That did have a negative impact of around 15 to 17 million pounds on the island. What I'm just saying is it's great and it's fantastic to hear all of this heritage, but at the end of the day, we have got to worry about our economy. We need to focus on our economy and make sure it remains strong. And so for me, let's stick with, and I follow Deputy Balash's commentary, let's keep Liberation Day as the big day. And the other days, yes, recognize them just simply as part of our heritage, part of our history, without this sort of national day sort of confusion, muddying the water. I think Deputy Balash used that term. I'm tempted to use the word KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And I think that's what's great about Liberation Day. We all recognize it. We all know it's the big day. With regard to the anthem, take it or leave it. Beautiful Jersey, fantastic. I would, for once in my life, agree with Deputy Mezek. I think there is something about that which is special, and it's very familiar. So I don't want to go around reinventing the wheel. I sense we've also been debating this for the last, well, I don't know how long, and surely we've got to move on. We've got to start thinking about our economy. We've got to start thinking about the people of this island who are struggling, and let's move on this debate, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. A lot of what I wanted to say has already been said, but it is an important debate, and I did want to make some comments so that they're on record. I completely concur with the Connétable of St John. I'm not going to support Part B, and I'm not going to support the main proposition either, because I don't agree that we need a national day, but I'll talk more about that in the main proposition. I do, however, want to support Part C of this proposition. A long time ago at St Lawrence School, we were taught Ma Normandie. I can still remember most of it. I don't know when Beautiful Jersey took hold, but I do associate that as our anthem for Jersey, not least as it's always sung at Liberation Day and other events. When it comes to our official anthem, which is supposed to be My Island Home, even though I am a singer, I probably couldn't get you past the first line, and I certainly couldn't even hum you the tune. And I'm interested in music. What I do want to say about beautiful Jersey as well is a bit nostalgic, I suppose, but I do remember during COVID that on BBC Radio Jersey, every morning at 8 o'clock, we had a lovely radio presenter called Ashley Tracy, who's recently left us and gone to the Isle of Man. And she played a different version of Beautiful Jersey at 8 o'clock every morning. And I actually found that very comforting during a very difficult time for Jersey, and I know a lot of other people did too. I'm not a natural athlete. In fact, you can tell I'm no sort of athlete at all. But if I was able to compete at a very high standard and I was able to win medals, I would want my bottigeri played on the podium as I receive my medal. Certainly not Ma Normandie, and certainly not our island home. It's a very well-known song. There was a majority, albeit, I agree, a very small one in the survey, but it does provide an opportunity to sing in both English and French, English and Gerrier, in whichever way you wish to start. And I think another thing of significance is Mambo Tigeri has been taught in Jersey primary schools for a very long time and has therefore gained traction amongst our young people. They know the words. And large choirs of children sing it beautifully, and we've heard that over the last few years at liberation celebrations and otherwise. So it clearly has huge significance for a large population, a large proportion of our population. And finally, sir, I think about what the late Connétable Sadie Le Sueur would have said about adopting this. And I think she would have probably said, yes, let's go for it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Miller.
Thank you, sir. Earlier in the week, I had thought that I wouldn't speak in this debate, but I'm inspired to do so by a T-shirt that I saw in the window of a shop on the way home on Tuesday evening, which had some wording on it, which made me think about the subject of anthems. And I will come back to that. But what I've been thinking is that, much as Deputy Balash has said, I think it's difficult to specify an anthem because anthems must have public adoption. The public and the people singing them have to want to sing them. They have to have some degree of emotional significance, as Deputy Balash says. They have to get the blood pumping. People have to want to sing them. And if they don't want to sing them, if they don't like them, there is very little point in specifying. An example I would give you is that a quick bit of Wikipedia, a bit of Google searching this morning, tells me that in Scotland we don't have an official national anthem, but there are two general contenders. There is the Flower of Scotland or Scotland the Brave. And I imagine if you walked along Argyle Street in Glasgow and asked people to sing you a verse of each, very many more people would be able to sing you Flower of Scotland than can sing Scotland the Brave. And like Deputy Miles, I could probably hum you the tune to Scotland the Brave, but I have no idea what the words are. Flower of Scotland is a relatively modern song. I believe it was written by a folk group called the Corries in either the late 60s or early 70s. And I remember having a Corries LP as a teenager, which my parents came home with from a function where the Corries performed. And it really that song caught the public imagination. And I remember when I was much younger, absolutely loving it. And I'm not sure that I do love it quite so much now as an adult, for a whole number of reasons, which I won't bore you with, and because I may have my rights of return barred, but partly because in the wrong hands it can sound like a bit of a dirge and not at all inspiring. Although I have to reflect, as I'm sure many of you will have seen, that some of the renditions of it we saw during the Euros in Germany last year were absolutely spine-tingling. So I believe the Scottish Government decided in 2015 not to specify an anthem, but I think it really matters that anthems are something that people want to sing. For what it's worth, I really like Beautiful Jersey. I think Beautiful Jersey, Gem of the Sea, captures what most of us say to people. When people say to me, what's it like living in Jersey? And what I always say is, it's beautiful and it's a lovely place to live. That is what we all say. That I am sure those are the first words any of us say. It's beautiful, and we love living here, and it's safe, and it's green, and it's beautiful. That is why most of us, I think, are here. And I think Visit Jersey might do well to consider beautiful Jersey, Gem of the Sea, as an advertising strapline, not quite as exotic as Penang, Pearl of the Orient, but it describes what Jersey is. Returning to the question of anthems, and we are getting closer to the T-shirt, I have no idea why Sweet Caroline is the celebration party song of English football. I don't understand how that has come about, but it's a great song. People love singing it. You can jump about and dance, and it's a great song. And I'm sure Neil Diamond is absolutely delighted it has become the party song of English football. And sir, to the T-shirt, I am equally baffled as to why, yes sir, I can boogie, the words on the T-shirt, has become the party song of Scottish football. But again, it's a great song. People like to sing it and jump about and celebrate. And to conclude, sir, yes sir, I can boogie, and I am going to look at that T-shirt very closely when the sitting is over. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on this amendment? Well, I call upon the Deputy to reply.
Thank you, sir. I'm very happy to follow the last speaker, and because she's got a lot to boogie about, I would suggest. And can I compliment her also on her patriotic dress today? And I make that. Sorry if I've made her cough, sir. I suppose that I wasn't thinking along these lines, but the Deputy has reminded me, and I think this needs to be a theme in our wider considerations, that it is possible to hold multiple identities at any one time, and you can feel belonging in lots of different ways. And I think this is really got to come out during the debate, because we shouldn't in any way be seen to be trying to impose one kind of homogenous view either of Jersey or what we think its identity is or should be, because it means many things. It's almost like that, like Schrödinger's cat, I suppose, in the sense that as soon as you try and define it, it becomes elusive, and that actually it's much more beneficial if we can get to a point where there's an organic sense of what it means to be an islander or to be Jersey, and that's why I think if you like, the contradictions and the counterpoints between the universals and the personal elements are where it really is all at. And so I thank members in advance, but in case I forget at the end, because I think it has been a constructive debate after a long and maybe difficult week in terms of some of the content that we've been discussing, because this does have the potential for us to seek where those commonalities are, and I think we found some of that already in this debate. And so I'm more interested in many ways, unlike some debates where you are perhaps absolutely keen to make sure that you absolutely win, and I would have liked, of course, all parts of my amendment to get through. I'm actually much more interested in the spirit of this debate and what members are saying, rather than necessarily what the ultimate outcome, whether we vote A, B, C, a mixture of all of them, or in fact none of them, because I think this debate hopefully will serve to move the conversation forward, and it's not one that we often have in this Assembly. And I think that's very important, not least to the Minister for International Development, but also for island identity. It's very bizarre speaking to somebody who's behind you, so I'm sorry that the Minister has to look at my back. She's used to looking at the back of my head, I think, anyway. So we've had some very good contributions here, and where to start? So let's start, I think, around the anthem, because I think there is some consensus around that. So I won't do this in the order in which people spoke necessarily, but first of all, I don't want to necessarily be too sycophantic, but I think it needs to be recognised that Liberation Day didn't just happen out of the blue, as Deputy O's have said. There was a concerted effort from some people in this Assembly, and I look across to now Deputy Balash, who during his time of bailiff saw that there was an opportunity to actually do something really positive for island identity, which could actually bring a level of cohesion to mark a significant event, which at that time was the 50th anniversary of the liberation. I'm always reminded when I go to Liberation Square, because that is truly one of the most iconic sculptures that we have. Again, that didn't just come out by chance. It was because there was a group of individuals in Jersey who thought that sculpture was important. Public sculpture was absolutely important. They set up the Public Sculpture Trust, I think, around 1994. They lobbied, they corralled, and they made their arguments. And actually, they said we do need public sculpture. And Liberation Square was created a number of years earlier, and of course that was to be the centrepiece. But it wasn't without controversy, because of course there was then a debate about whether or not there should be a flag or whether there should be doves that be released from the Liberation statue, the Liberation sculpture. And the original vision of the sculptor, Philip Jackson, was that there should be a flag. It was a patriotic moment, and there was a flag present at Liberation Day. Politicians got involved and said, actually, we think we'd like to change the flag to doves, because doves signify peace and reconciliation. And strangely enough, that was a controversial idea. A lot of public pushback against that idea, especially from those who remembered the occupation and who remembered the war. And they said, actually, this was a moment where the flag, the British flag, which we hadn't seen for 5 years, was so important to us. Doves, less so, and there weren't any doves left after the occupation, perhaps for obvious reasons. So the flag was put back in its place. And that sculpture, which remains on our £1 note today, is of course, I think, of central importance. So that idea of how something can become an icon, both tangibly and also symbolically, I think is a good example of something that could be unifying. So let's turn to the to Mon Beau Petit Géry, because I would hope that, I don't think we're going to get unanimous support, but I think that we can build up some consensus around this. And of course, we all have tunes that we love. I think that sense which you get, that phenomenon that when you get the hairs on the back of your neck, or even just that sense that you get when you hear a particular piece of music or even see something, I think it's called synesthesia, or if I'm pronouncing it correct, and it's a physical response to an external stimulus, and I've certainly had that, and I've had it when I've been listening to different songs, including Beautiful Jersey, but there are also some other songs I might touch on. And of course, things are subjective, and I've had interacted on social media recently when people say, oh, we don't want that song, we don't need a national anthem, we don't want Beautiful Jersey, it's a terrible song. And I said, well, have you actually listened to it? And have you listened to a modern version of it? And then you send people the link and you say, actually, if you, they say it's not bad. Actually, one person said, no, I still don't like it. When I sent it to them, I think they'd made up their mind, which is fine, because it is also quite political in a sense. But people who are willing to keep an open mind, people who are aware of the song and aware of the fact that songs can be played in different ways and can be renewed in their interpretations, that there will no doubt be lots of pop songs which you like some versions of, but you don't like all the versions of, and that's why covers, of course, routinely get made. And so I get where Deputy Joseph's coming from when he said he'd like some other verses to be added that make it a bit more patriotic, that talk about our history and 1204. But I'd say in doing that, I think we'd be spoiling the song, because actually one of the strong advantages we have of Beautiful Jersey is that it's inherently apolitical. And it's something that, as Deputy Miller said, I think, in the last speaker, was actually hit the nail on the head there. It's something that everybody in Jersey can relate to. And I'd actually go one step further. It's not just something that Jersey residents can relate to. It's also partly been written with visitors to Jersey in mind. So when we look at the words like « Y a un coin de terre que j'aime, que je n'oublierai jamais, dans mes pensées très jours premiers, car je vais rien à comparer à ses beautés dans tous mes voyages à l'étranger ». So what they're saying there is that I'll never forget Jersey. I'm always thinking about it. It's the first thing I think about. And there's nowhere else in the world that you can compare to the beauty that you have in Jersey, sir. I'm getting that synesthesia even as I just read this, sir. In all my voyages abroad, and you'll never find somewhere as beautiful. And I often say that to people. I know, having travelled extensively when I was younger, and that you see so many beautiful places, you see beautiful beaches that are equally beautiful to Jersey, and they're different. They've got palm trees, they've got, gold and sand. But I say that they might be beautiful places, but there's nowhere that is better. There's lots of places that can equal Jersey that are different. But when you come home, when you go walking on the northern cliffs, with or without your dog, or if you go down to Beauport, one of my favourite beaches in the island, other people love Portelet, You won't get any better than that, and that's something which we can all relate to as Jersey people, but as visitors as well. And of course, I'm mindful of the fact in a different debate, Deputy Southern might have said, but you can't eat the countryside, and that's absolutely true. When it comes to the political realities of living in Jersey, there are divisions, but this is something that can unite, I think, all of us, not just those who live here. And of course, then it talks about Mon vieux petit Géry, the chorus, la reine des îles, lieu de ma naissance, tu passes près du cœur, aussi du souvenir du bon temps que j'ai eu quand je pense à Géry, la reine des îles. Okay, so maybe you do have to be Jersey born to appreciate that particular bit, but I think we can treat that metaphorically. My beautiful Jersey, the queen of the islands, and what beautiful memories I have when I think of you, and the beautiful times that I've had in Jersey, when I think of Jersey, the queen of the islands. And you've just won silver, you've just won bronze, you've just won gold, and you're on that podium. And actually you hear your national anthem, or your anthem, whatever that means to you. You're not hearing the same anthem of the team that you've just beaten, because in fact, the Jersey Pétanque team has just beaten the England team, I think for the first time. It happened last year. Very strange if they've both got to play the same anthem, isn't it? God Save the King. It's fine, it's got its place, but it's not what Jersey should be playing on a podium at a pétanque match where it's just beaten the English again, like they did in 1066. So that's not the anthem we want, thank you very much. Something that relates to the Duke, perhaps. And I was very pleased to, a couple of days ago, with my St. Bernard colleague, Deputy Miles, and the Minister, Deputy Morell, to attend the Sports Council Sports Awards. And sitting there, you just realise the amount of passion that people have for Jersey, for their sport. They're not just doing that, of course, because they love the sport, and they're supporting each other, but they're also going off island to celebrate and to represent us. And whether they win medals or whether they don't, they're representing the island in that sense as well. And so it's not just a case of us playing an anthem here, but it's playing an anthem when we get to those places. So whether it's in the UK, whether it's in France, or all of those countries in the island games, they actually say, oh, what's happened here? Jersey's now got its own anthem, which is actually being officially endorsed by the assembly of its own country, so to speak, of its own island. Wow, that's brilliant that they're actually supporting them. Now, I also think that there are some great other songs. You know, I think the Sergeant Pippins, or Wet Wet Leggett, or Headley Stardust and the Spider Crabs from Lamar, the band that used to change its name routinely. I grew up with them. I mean, they were brilliant. In the days before social media and the internet, you had to hear almost by word of mouth, where are they going to be playing? What are they going to be called this week? And their songs were absolutely both hilarious but also poignant. If you could actually understand what they were saying, they weren't always the clearest. I think Deputy Farnham probably knows one of the band members quite well. He might speak on that later. But,
Could you give me, sir? Just very briefly. I think you forgot to mention the Lebre City Rollers. Thank you.
Indeed, sir. And I also forgot to mention Elton John, sir. But the list goes on. And it's the gift that keeps giving. So, of course, their song "Proud" would actually make a really great anthem, and it's a song that Badlebeck covered, and "Proud to be a Bean." And again, you can sing it in Gérier and in English. And I have to put my hand up and say that if the minister had been proposing Beautiful Jersey today, I would have put an amendment in to say, actually, can we have Proud to be a Bean instead? So let's have a debate, because I think one of the issues we'll get back to is that I think this consultation, if there's any criticism to be made of it, and I understand that it built on a previous piece of consultation, it was quite limited in its scope of what it asked. So I think that there was an opportunity, of course, for people to put other suggestions forward. So Proud to be a Bean, if you've not heard it, and you've not heard the Badlebeck version, I suggest you listen to it, because it's great fun, but it's also really simple, and it talks about that idea that you can either be a bean or a crapo, and the two are not necessarily mutually exclusive. Let's talk about the crapo now, actually, so I'm going to jump around a little bit. It is a good segue. I get that there are other dates out there. What I'm disappointed at, and I fully agree with that, so when I became when I was briefly Assistant Minister for Culture, I managed to get, and I specified to then Deputy Senator Farnham, that I really wanted to get a report published which had been commissioned by my predecessor about culture, arts and heritage. And one of the key recommendations that they made in that report when it was published was that we should make culture, arts and heritage more visible through key events and anniversaries. And that's absolutely what we should be doing. So I make no apologies for singling out, both now and in the past, and I'll do it in the future, about the importance of the 28th of September. It's one of the many days that are important in our calendar. It's already becoming established. And irrespective of whether members vote for this today to make it a second or an additional national day, I hope that I can count on members' support to actually make sure that we don't forget it, that we celebrate it, and we accept that there needs to be both anniversaries, but also events in our calendar that speak to different parts of our population, because I think that's really important. But let's look at the 1204 date, because I think that is critical, because actually, what have we done to celebrate 1204? It's difficult to find a particular day where we might look at those constitutional changes, the very fundamental ones that took place around about then. But there is a specific day that we could choose. If we wanted to have a date that celebrates 1204, when might it be? I'll give you a suggestion. I'll give members a suggestion. It should probably be the date that we unveiled in 2004 the statue of the Crapo sculpture at Charing Cross. Because the Crapo sculpture has now been in place for 20 years. Did that anniversary of the 20 years of the Crapo have any kind of anniversary link to it? No, it didn't. I tried to get something done behind the scenes, so I had been emailing both the sculptor of the sculpture, who's called Gordon Young. He's a great, what we call a typographical sculptor. He's done pieces of work all over the world and in the UK too. He did the famous Blackpool comedy carpet, which is obviously two-dimensional, it's vast. It's just outside Blackpool Tower. And to have a piece of work from somebody of his calibre in Jersey, which celebrates our own unique history, but in a particular way, in a slightly comic but also poignant way, on a plinth which is surrounded by an inscription from the Code Legette from 1698, I think it is. It speaks to our local culture in a particular way, but 20 years anniversary meant nothing. And unfortunately, I was in correspondence with an officer to bring over him at my own expense, or if the department couldn't do it, to have a talk put on by him about what that sculpture means. The talk would have been called The Toad and the Code, because it would have talked about both the Toad and the Code Civil, that particular Code Legette rather, and it would have been an opportunity for us to focus both on current day culture and on what happened in 1204 and why this statue, this sculpture, which is fascinating both to locals and visitors alike, is important. I would suggest we haven't missed that opportunity yet, because this year is the 21st anniversary of the Toad. So the Toad is effectively coming of age this year. And I would put the challenge out to everybody who thinks that 1204 should be celebrated as a significant date, is that we look to make that date in December when the sculpture was unveiled also a date where we have a celebration where we do invite Gordon Young over to come and give a talk. We can have him over earlier in the year if we need to. And we celebrate the significance both of that sculpture and of our wider links with Normandy and our constitutional links with the UK. I'm absolutely up for that. And the point I'm making is that none of these things are mutually exclusive, otherwise we enter into whataboutism. What about 1981, when we got to put the emblem on our flag? Should that be an important date? Yes, arguably it should, but somebody else needs to do that. I can't do all of these things. My particular passion is around the Corn Riots, about the changes in 1771. And if anyone's concerned that this is just focusing on the Corn Riots and it's just a niche interest, if you go to the website of Bedell Christian, where I took some of my references from, they actually talk about the significance of the Corn Riots in an article just this year. With no influence from me, they've just decided that they want to talk about the historical significance of what the Corn Riots were and why 1771 was an important date, to the point that they're willing to write about it on their website. So it's got a wider following than just some niche political or some niche cultish cultural following, sir. Deputy Balash said that Jerseymen don't like being told what to do. Well, I think that's absolutely right, and I think that's why the Corn Riots is so fundamental. It's about people in the countryside actually probably an emerging middle merchant class who found that they were being mistreated by a political setup and a balance of power, and the fact that they couldn't eat and they couldn't afford to buy corn and they couldn't afford to pay for things in corn either. They took things into their own hands and they said, yeah, let's get off our posteriors, let's march down to the Royal Square, let's demand a change in the system. And then actually we know that when Colonel Bentinck came to the island, he said, actually, yes, we do need some changes in Jersey, but they were changes which ultimately were adopted willingly by the people of Jersey, which actually helped people and moved society forward. Now, it's good to remind ourselves that some of Iron Maiden's best albums were produced here in Jersey or written here. I don't know if they were recorded here. They were written here. In the same way, of course, that lots of Victor Hugo's best work, well, some of it was written in Jersey. Of course, he didn't have much time, unfortunately. He only had 3 years in Jersey because we were a little bit mean with Victor Hugo, in hindsight, sir. So we could suggest that actually the 31st of October, rather than being a national day, that could be called Stupidity Day or Unintended Consequences Day, because that's the day in 1855 where the constable and centenary of St. Clement knocked on the door of Victor Hugo. That's the day he left, but a few days earlier they knocked on his door and said, "You've got to leave, mate. We want you to go." I don't know if they said it in those tones, but probably in French. And he said, "Okay, you've got a week to go," and he went to live in Guernsey. Now, why is that important? Because it talks about the vision that we might have, actually, because in kicking out one of our greatest, temporarily the greatest literary authors, the most well-known throughout the world, we actually had a lack of vision there about what we could be doing culturally. So I would suggest that actually we need to always be vigilant of having these things at the forefront of our mind. We could have the Battle of Flowers. Yes, absolutely. We could have the Battle of Britain. We could have the Battle of Jersey. Why are we so obsessed with battles, though, I wonder? Not every national day needs to be a battle. In fact, I used to call it the air display, not the Battle of Britain. I think those are all important days for different people, but I think actually in an increasingly mature island, which is confident in its own sense of identity, there's nothing wrong with having more than one national day. In fact, it's perhaps less controversial to have a number of national days than one specific national day, sir. I'm going to finish on this one, because let's go back to beautiful Jersey. I think that's where the debate is to be won. I've been to Granville a few times, and one of the regrets is that the Granville Carnival is great, but it just seems to happen at the wrong time of the year. You can't really get into the spirit of Mardi Gras when it's a rainy February or March and that you're actually shivering. I'd much prefer to be maybe in Rio or in Trinidad or in Notting Hill in the summer or in Jersey in the summer indeed. But I can imagine, and I do understand that when Deputy Scott says it brings tears to her eyes when she sings Beautiful Jersey, I can just imagine the French when she was talking to them and they said, "Deputy Scott, I can assure you that when you sing Beautiful Jersey, it brings tears to our eyes too." So with those final words, sir, I sit down and make the amendments and ask members to vote for both parts.
So can I ask a point of clarification?
Point of clarification, will you accept one from Deputy Joseph?
Sorry?
Will you accept a point of clarification from Deputy Joseph?
Yes.
So I didn't hear the move of the proposition. He's obviously a backbencher, but does he have do we know why the government is supporting this? And are they entirely?
So I can't speak for the government, but my understanding is that there's a free vote on the council for all parts of this, which means that they can vote for it if they want to, and I'd encourage them to. Thanks.
Deputy Scott, a point of clarification?
Yes, please. Could the Deputy confirm he'll be taking his amendment in parts, please?
It's a matter for you, Deputy. You prefer to take it in two parts or?
I will, sir. Yes.
Yes. All right. So the appel is being called for, and members are asked to return to their seats. So we're taking this in two parts. The first part is that the 28th of September should be adopted as Jersey's second national day. And I invite the greffier to open the voting. All members with the opportunity of casting their votes. I ask the greffier to close the voting. Announce that Part A has been rejected. 17 votes pour, 27 votes contre. Move on to Part...
May we have the names, please?
You want the numbers? Yes, the 17 and the 24, please, greffier.
Those voting pour, the Conotable of St Martin and deputies Southern, Labby, Tadier, Doublé, Morel, the Hegera, Ward, Elves, Mezek, Coles, Curtis, Feltham, Jearn, Kovac, Curtis and Andrews. Those voting contre, the Connotables of St Helier, St Lawrence, St Brallard, Trinity, St Peter, St John, St Mary and St Saviour, and deputies Luce, Ayer, Gorst, Farnham, Ozef, Balash, War, Miles, Scott, Binet, Miller, Howell, Binet, Ferry, Ward, and online the Connotables of St Juan and St Clement, and deputies Stevenson and Gardner.
Moving to Part B, that Beautiful Jersey should be adopted as the island's official anthem. I ask the greffier to open the voting. All members with the opportunity of casting their votes, I ask the greffier to close the voting. And I can announce that Part B has been adopted. 33 votes for, 9 votes contre, and 2 abstentions. Yes, the 9 and the 2 have been asked for. Is that £10? Is that a £10 fine? It's a £10 fine for Deputy Joseph.
So those voting contre, deputies Morel, Ayer, Gorst, Ozef, Balash, Miller, Howell, Tom Binet and Curtis, and the 2 abstentions were Deputy Coles and Deputy Scott.
Now moved back to the proposition as amended. Does any member wish to speak on the proposition as amended? Deputy Ferry.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure Liberation Day is a really special day for lots of people who live in Jersey for all sorts of different reasons. And my involvement in the celebrations in particular that are held on Liberation Day goes back over 20 years. So before I was elected to this Assembly, some members may know that I was actively involved in the Thanksgiving and reenactment celebrations on Liberation Day itself, both in the preparation for the events and on the execution of the parades and the bands and the vehicles in the march past at the end through the bailiff's office. And one of the best parts about doing that role was not just getting up early on Liberation Day and walking into town, helping to set out all the seats and labels and meeting with parishioners and people who were survivors from the occupation. But after at the conclusion of the event, we would retire to the Pomdor, and in the early days when I was involved, it was a free bar. And so people who were here during the occupation had a chance to have a drink and loosen up a bit. And whilst it was a joyous occasion, emotions sometimes bubbled to the surface when people had had 1 or 2 drinks. That was, just after the sun was over the yardarm. And I remember particularly speaking to an individual gentleman who's now sadly passed away, who was here on Liberation Day. And I asked him, What was it like in the couple of years after Liberation Day? Because we always think about such a joyous occasion, but what was the rebuild like? What was the atmosphere like? And he was very clear. He said, we just wanted to forget about the whole thing. We just wanted to rebuild our lives and erase everything that we could see that had to do with the occupation. And that's why guns were lobbed over cliffs and bunkers were filled in, because people were sick of it. They just did not want to see it anymore. And he said, bizarrely, now all I want to make sure is that no one forgets what happened. So it had come full circle. And I'm so glad that I got to speak to that gentleman on more than one occasion, because his recollection of those years after the occupation were really strong to him. So in my view, raising the status of Liberation Day to a national day, in effect, will make sure that that memory never dies. And the main theme that comes from Liberation Day is one of freedom. Yes, of course, we celebrate our liberation from occupying forces, but the ongoing legacy about Liberation Day is a celebration of our freedom. At a time when lots of places around the world are full of oppressed people, it becomes even more poignant. So for me, the way we keep the legacy of Liberation Day going is to make it a national day. Of course, there will always be the negative connotations associated with how Liberation Day came about. But if we focus on the positives, which is a celebration of our freedom, whilst not neglecting the memories of what people endured over here, that is the way that we can take Liberation Day forward into the future and make sure that we keep celebrating it for the right reasons. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir, and I hopefully, like the former speaker, will be brief. And I really appreciated his commentary about the nuance in this, and like many of us who come from a family whose relatives lived through this period, it shaped generations in their approach, and the celebratory nature that Liberation Day is for many is not one that I relate to at all. In fact, remembering a Liberation Day to prior where celebrations of a rugby club oversaw what actually is quite a sombre day for many, jarred with me and I know with other members. So turning this to a national day is something, a day we celebrate, it is a hard one for me. It also, I mean, as Deputy Ferry says about throwing and moving on, I look around and I see the fortifications left by the Nazis and know for many that I know, you know, the reverence we give them with their Grade 1 listed statuses actually jars again. We've got enough, we could get rid of a few more still. And that's a valid opinion I think people should have about how we move on and evolve. But I think making it a national day also undervalues the fact that this was 5 years and a lot of impact and influence on people, but it was only 5 years of what is an incredibly rich and long history, and I don't think it defines the best day for our nation. The only other reason I rose to speak was in reflecting conversations I've had with parishioners and islanders, and a couple of words said by the lodger of this proposition included that, I'll find it here, the values of freedom and resilience which Liberation Day embodies. Deputy Ferry talked about freedom and Deputy Tadia talked about the removal from our lands of a tyrant. And I think it's all well and good, sir, that we can value those in theory, but this Assembly still doesn't really want to have a voice for that in practice in other lands across the world. We have people genuinely afraid to use their voice in this island now for fear that they will be taken to our courts, that they will be treated differently because the values they wish to represent, the values we are talking about today, are not held in the same regard when talked about certain places. And principally right now, we all know that the hardest place, or one very visibly talked about, is of course out of the Palestinians in Gaza. and this assembly hasn't done much to show that the values we're talking about, the values we care that we were granted on Liberation Day, are those we also want to see fought for and defended for those who also want to take the words, quite frankly, the removal from lands of a tyrant. So, sir, until I know that this assembly and this island gets behind a voice for people and actually makes that known beyond platitudes and the words of that we have to be careful for soft diplomacy sometimes in the very way we mask ourselves, I find this jarring as well, that we were very happy to receive our freedoms. We want to celebrate them, but we don't always go the distance to say how we want to protect others. And especially, as I say, in the context now of those who speak for the freedoms of Palestinians in Gaza, not to mention the ongoing challenges around the world, you know, whether it be in Asia, Africa, we need to do better. And I think before we start celebrating how good that day was for us, we need to look deeply at ourselves and think, how can we do better, sir, to make sure what we value is valued by so many more around the world.
Deputy. Conor Talbot and Saviour.
Thank you, sir. In a similar vein, sir, many years ago when I was a young man, as many members know, I worked on the BBC Bergerac series, the original one. When that show finished, I was contracted to work for Bavaria Films, German crew coming over. We were all of a similar age, sort of probably late 20s and early 30s, and we were filming at what was the Lobster Pot on the northeast coast, but no longer with us. And during filming, we had a tea break, and we were all standing looking out to sea. And one of the guys one gentleman sat next to me, sort of brushed his foot on the floor, said, "Kevin, what is this?" And I said, "Sorry, what is what? What is this here, this concrete?" And I said, "Oh, it's a German bunker." And everyone looked at each other in amazement. And a bunker? They'd not been taught at school that Jersey was actually occupied by Germany, and they got extremely embarrassed about it. But so it's something we definitely need to preserve. They got even more excited 2 days later when they said, "Kevin, we're going back to Bavaria. We're all going up to Berlin. Please come with us. You've had your freedom. We're going to have ours now. We're going to be dancing on top of the Berlin Wall." And I said, "Are you crazy? The Russians would never allow that." But sure enough, within the week, they were all dancing on the Berlin Wall. So we all have our freedom, and this is a memory that must be preserved. Thanks, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the proposition as amended? Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Just wanted to respond to a point made by Deputy Curtis. I once read a study that talked about the gap between what you're trying to achieve, but also how far you've come. And I believe that Liberation Day has been a great opportunity for members, whether it's the bailiff or the chief minister, to highlight this ongoing struggle to secure freedoms for the community. And in terms of freedom of speech, I believe that the Minister of International Development, who's exploring this or endeavouring to create a cohesive island identity for us, has really sought to the expression by the public as to what they want. So I would counter that to not support this proposition is in fact not respecting that invitation to express an opinion and to implement it. We may have issues, that's undeniable, but I believe that what he's saying isn't actually relevant to the point in hand, which is actually to respect an expression of public opinion. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak? Deputy Joseph.
Thank you, sir. A national day should be not just about a moment in time. I believe it should be to recognise our past, our present and our future. And I'm more than happy to agree to Liberation Day being our national day. And as the then bailiff, when making one of his landmark speeches on Liberation Day on behalf of the people of Jersey, many of which are texts which I have reflected on, and they were great, he said that we should celebrate Liberation Day forever. And I agree with that, because what happened during those dark years was joy, as well as sadness and recognition. And I would like just to say in this concluding part of the debate that Liberation 80 should be about recognising where we have come from in the last 80 years. But maybe we should also think about what we need to do to make Jersey the fantastic place that we all want it to be, the thing that unifies all of us, that's why we're here. What we can do in the next 80 years to make Jersey the great place that it should be. And I'm not sure that, with the greatest of respect, we've done ourselves, and maybe even me taking time up now in speaking in this debate, that we're actually dealing with the people's priorities. I've said it in earlier debates. This is important, but we need to basically be making changes for the future of Jersey that are sometimes difficult, but the future is not evidenced, but we have a guide to it. The last 80 years, since 1204, Deputy Balash said about the enduring parts of a Jerseyman, that they're stubborn and they're contrary. Maybe I've displayed that, so I'm sorry if I have. But actually, it's about the future, not just the past. And the present is where we need to get on and deal with the people's priorities, because there's a lot of people that are not happy in Jersey. They are suffering, and we need to deal with that, and we need to be mindful of that.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. I don't really want to speak for very long, but I am going to vote against this proposition. I just really wanted to explain why. I just don't feel that Jersey needs a national day. I think we have Liberation Day as a de facto, and I don't think that needs to be official particularly. My mother-in-law and her family were deported to Biberach during the occupation. Liberation is very important to our family, and it's something that we recognise and indeed celebrate at home every day. I think if she was here now, she'd see Liberation Day as a demotion or a dilution if it was to be made our national day. Again, not a perspective that everybody shares, but certainly one that I wanted to share. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member speak on the proposition? Deputy Coles.
Sir, thank you. I'm prompted to rise up following Deputy Miles because I 100% concur with her views and opinions. The Liberation Day is a day of national importance on its own, and I feel by making it a national day for Jersey, I think it's diluting things which still live in our memories today. That's not to say in 50 years' time we may want to reconsider, but at the moment, while we still have people still alive to remember our liberation, I think the day should remain as it is, and we can consider something else for a national day.
Thank you, Deputy. Any other speak on the proposition as amended? Deputy Taddeo.
Thank you, sir. So I will be supporting this, but I do think it's important to put a different point of view on record, because I think there are those, like people who Deputy Miles has spoken to, or family, who simply have asked the question, why do we need a national day? It is effectively our national day. So in doing my research for the proposition, sir, I did look at, I typed in Liberation Day Jersey, and in fact I typed in a list of national days around the world, and the internet already thinks Liberation Day is our national day, so that's good. So at least the internet knows that. And that could be seen as an argument either for just officially making it our day, which I would suggest is probably what we need to do, but there is the counter-argument which says, why do we need it? There's also the argument, which I didn't want to dwell on too much, is that for a lot of people, the occupation and liberation means very different things. And it's right that Deputy Ferry pointed out that immediately after the occupation, a lot of people didn't want to talk about it, especially perhaps those returning from war or returning as evacuees. We mustn't forget about the evacuees. And there were some very difficult feelings there. And I go back to the Liberation sculpture. Next time you're in Liberation Square, look at the different people that are in that set of of sculptures, and you'll see one of the elder gentlemen with a kind of clenched fist, and that clenched fist has always intrigued me, because I think it was put there deliberately by the artist, sir. And I don't know if it's just coincidental, if it's a clenched fist of anticipation, or if it's something that he still retains anger over something that's happened during the occupation. Maybe one of his sisters, daughters, a family member got deported, never came back from the camps. We think of Louisa Gould, but there were many others. Or is it the fact that actually he knows that now the occupation is over, things don't just go away. He's still got to live next door to the people who maybe denounced his family. He's got when we think of the Cahoon, Claude Cahoon and Marcel Moore, actually Lucy Schwab and Suzanne Malherbe, who lived in St. Brelard, they were released from prison on Liberation Day, or just before, on the 8th, but they had to go back to a house which is being completely ransacked, despite their heroism during the occupation, only to find that it hadn't just been ransacked by the Germans, it had been ransacked by locals, and they could see women in Jersey wearing their clothes, their haute couture from Paris, and thinking, how did you get that? And a lot of the furniture in other people's homes around Jersey. So the liberation was a complex thing, sir. And of course, there were those asking themselves the question, well, we wouldn't have had to be liberated in the first place if we had been defended properly, sir. And I know that's a contentious statement to make, but of course there are those who feel like it, and I think on balance, most historians recognise the fact that the island was probably undefendable, if you like, but it's certainly not a question that goes without contention. And of course we do get back to the treatment of Jews during the occupation in Jersey and other groups. So I'm always reminded of the fact that when I go to visit the grave of Suzanne Malherbe and Lucy Schwab in St. Brelard's Church, only a few headstones away, just behind her, is the headstone of a certain Monsieur Orange, who was, after the war, was a Jurat, but during the occupation, he was one of those who too zealously registered Jews in the island, and this is recorded in one of the many books of the occupation, and nobody really knows why he took so much care in making sure that people who probably shouldn't have been registered as Jews during the occupation were, and then possibly led to consequences or deportations because of that, certainly consequences. So it was a complex period, the occupation, and not everybody necessarily sees it, especially if they were the ones here at the time. And I think during our discussions as a scrutiny panel, sir, we were mindful to look at the actual basis for evidence. I'm not going to go right through our comments, by the way, because strangely enough, I think we've forgotten that our panel is the main respondent to this proposition. You didn't forget, sir, but I think during the debate we may have. And there are considerations to be made about the extent to which the consultation might have could be critiqued. But it comes back to the bottom line that I would have been very interested to actually have more of a breakdown. So we know that there's a breakdown from young people who were consulted. They also thought Liberation Day should be Jersey's National Day, but it would have been helpful, I think, to have a particular breakdown from those who were either in the island during occupation. What does that group think? What do those who were of that age, even if they weren't in Jersey, but who lived through the Second World War elsewhere, and possibly those who were evacuated, do they also see Liberation Day as an important day? I suspect very much it wouldn't differ, because 81% is a very significant response to albeit a self-selecting survey, but I think it's important to voice those other concerns. So can I also just congratulate Deputy Alex Curtis on his courage in standing up today, because I was thinking exactly along the same lines. We are sent often many emails in recent weeks and months even by members of the public who are very concerned about what's going on in Israel and Palestine and Gaza. And they're asking us, why is there such silence from government and from this assembly about the atrocities that are unfolding in that part of the world? So we know it is invariably very, it's an intractable, it seems like an intractable decision, and there is blame on both sides. But I, for one, so do want to stand up in this assembly and actually tell Israel that what they're doing is completely disproportionate. The loss of life that we are seeing daily, often on our TV screens, of babies, young people being killed, those who can't even possibly in any way be said to be involved with the organisation of Hamas that Israel is fighting. Those are not the ones who, by any means, any stretch of the imagination, should be paying for any of what's going on in that area. And so it does bring us back to the fact that Jersey was occupied, but there are parts of the world that are living under occupation. Even before this most recent flare-up in the conflict, which is having deadly consequences, we know that the Palestinians are under an occupation and have been. And whilst that may not be, the solutions may be more difficult than the problem itself to resolve, so we do need to be mindful and not stay silent, because if it becomes meaningless, is this just an opportunity to rubber stamp a proposition for a national day where we don't think about actually what our islanders were going through over, it has to be said, a relatively peaceful period of 5 years, very difficult, of course, but compared to what other occupations and other occupied people are suffering around the world, we mustn't stay silent in that. And of course we do ask our government to make sure they take steps to make sure that they are not in any way and cannot be seen to be complicit with that situation, sir.
If no further member wishes to speak, I call upon the Minister to reply. Minister.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to thank those members who have spoken and their contributions. And I'd especially like to thank Deputy Tadiev for making his amendments so we can have a different perspective to the debate, which was quite good-humoured for most of it. And I think it gives us the opportunity, and it's been good to hear some of the sentiments expressed about Jersey, because in many ways I feel that we don't always speak ourselves up. We don't always speak about Jersey in a positive light. And I think sometimes we've got to reflect on that and consider where we are and where we come from. I will just touch on some of what some people have said with regards to Alex Curtis. As he probably knows, we were one of the only jurisdictions on British soil during the war and I think to this day, to have received international aid in Jersey. And had we not received it, many islanders would not be here today. In my capacity, my areas of responsibility, I feel we pay some of that kindness back. We do send aid to Gaza and Palestine, and that is what I can do. But I hear you, and it's something that this government, I think, should consider.
Sir, just at a break, could I just do a point of order? It's a point of order, just if you could gently rule whether a member should be referred to as a deputy and not just by a first and last name, as I just was. Just so we maintain that.
Yes, it should be deputy.
Thank you. Just politely, just to.
I apologise. I missed deputy. I said his first name to differentiate him from Deputy Catherine Curtis.
Yes, you're right. Correct.
Yes, and I hear what members have said about sort of the significance of Liberation Day, and I think I made clear in my opening remarks, but I will make clear again that by giving Liberation Day the status of a national day, it most certainly doesn't detract from that. In fact, it gives it the international status it deserves. And I think it cements that recognition for the future. And future generations can get behind it. Obviously, the young people and many of us didn't live through the war, but I think the sentiments of freedom and resilience is something that we can all consider and all celebrate. So, in conclusion, sir, I would like to urge members to support my proposition and, as I say, to give Liberation Day the status it deserves and recognise it as our national day. With 82% of the respondents to the consultation in favour, the results were decisive. Liberation Day was the overwhelming choice for islanders that responded. And by making it a national day, I believe we honour the past, strengthen the present, and inspire the future. In a rapidly changing world, asserting Jersey's distinct identity has never been more important. And recognising Liberation Day as our national day, while referring it as Liberation Day, is a tangible step towards building a stronger, more unified community, where the whole community can get behind a national day and understand the significance. I would have liked another day. There's no end to how many national days we can have. We're not asking for public holidays or bank holidays, but we can have more than one day, which is why I was quite happy to support Deputy Tadia. But this decision, I feel, is more about than just selecting a date or dates on the calendar. It's about defining who we are as a people and the importance of that. So I ask members to take this step towards reinforcing our shared identity to help instill some pride in Jersey. Thank you.
Is the appel called for?
Yes, it is, sir.
Thank you, Minister. The appel has been called for. Members are invited to return to their seats. I ask the greffier to open the voting. If all members have the opportunity of casting their votes, I ask the greffier to close the voting. And the proposition has been adopted. 34 votes pour, 7 votes contre, and 1 abstention.
Could I have the 7 and the 1, please, sir?
Yes.
The 7 voting contre, deputies Southern, Ayer, Ward, Coles, Miles, and Alex Curtis, and the Connotab of St. Juan, and Deputy Miller abstained.
The next matter is appointment of members' rate appeal board lodged by the Minister for Treasury and Resources. The main respondent is the chair of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. I ask the greffier to read the proposition.
The states are asked to decide whether they are of opinion, in pursuance of Article 44 of the Rates Jersey Law 2005, A, to reappoint for a further 3-year term Messrs John Refo, Barry LeBevan and Scott Hollywood as members of the Rate Appeal Board until the 27th of March 2028. B, to reappoint for a further 1-year term Ms Christine Vibert and Mr Ron Treby as members of the Rate Appeal Board until the 27th of March 2026. And C, to appoint for an initial 3-year term Mrs Marilyn Weatherall and Mr Mark Dawson as members of the Rate Appeal Board until the 27th of March 2028.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, today I'm seeking members' approval for the reappointment of 5 individuals to the Rate Appeal Board and the appointment of 2 new members to that board. Members may be aware that the Rate Appeal Board is established under the Rates Jersey Law 2005. Its members are required to hear and determine appeals against rateable values in accordance with the law, and they do so with no remuneration. We are very fortunate and indebted to islanders who put themselves forward voluntarily for these honorary positions. The tenure of the existing members of the board ends on 27th March this year. I am grateful that 5 of the members have put themselves forward for reappointment, and I would like to thank these members for their continuing voluntary service to the board. The members I'm proposing for reappointment for a further 3-year term are Messrs John Refo, Barry LeBevan, and Scott Hollywood. The members I'm proposing for reappointment for a further 1-year term are Mr Ron Treby and Miss Christine Vibert. This will be Miss Vibert's 9th year on the board, and this will complete her term of office, and I would like to express my gratitude to her for her lengthy voluntary service to the board. Brief biographies for all the reappointments are included in the report. The individuals I'm proposing for appointment are Miss Marilyn Wetherall and Mr Mark Dawson. Again, brief biographies are included in the report. As you will have read in those biographies, the proposed individuals have a diverse range of experience both on and off island. Sir, I propose the nominations. Thank you.
Thank you, Alistair. Is the proposition seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Yes, Deputy Host.
Just very briefly, sir. There is should I declare that former Constable of St Peter, and one of the candidates I know quite well. I haven't spoken to them about this though. Is the Minister able to say in any way, and I'm sorry if I've missed this from the report, how many appeals there are and whether or not the current issues that are known about in one parish concerning rates are going to be able to be dealt with in the right thing that she says, that these people are acting in an honorary capacity when there is significant question marks over the way that rates are being done. I know that she's aware of it. I don't want to make a long point about it, but there is a need for a rates appeal board that can deal with some of the issues that are underlying it. Does she agree, and are they aware of this?
Any other member to speak on the proposition? Yes, Colin Thompson-Brillard.
Sir, if I may just come in, perhaps to assist the Treasury Minister in response to Senator Ozef. I keep calling. Sorry, Deputy Ozef. It's old habits. So there were several appeals this year from Greville particularly, and I think there were 13, I stand to be corrected on that, of which 12 were rejected and 1 succeeded, and the existing board dealt with those in a very professional manner in the correct way, sir.
Got it, Tom? Any other members wish to speak? Yes, Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I'm grateful to the Constable of St Brelad because I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question myself. I'm quite sure that if there was a significant volume of appeals, the board would be given appropriate levels of support to help them administer and deal with the appeals. I believe in the ordinary course, the number of appeals are relatively few each year. Thank you, sir. Can I propose the appel?
Propose the appel? The appel has been asked for. Deputy Miles, your light's on.
I'm so sorry.
The members are invited to return to their seats in the greffier to open the voting. All members have the chance of casting their votes, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. I can announce that the proposition has been adopted unanimously, 40 votes pour. The next item is Social Security Tribunal reappointment of panel members lodged by the Minister for Social Security. The named respondent is the Chair of the Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel. I'll ask the greffier to read the proposition.
The states are asked to decide whether they're of opinion to appoint, in accordance with Article 33A of the Social Security Jersey Law 1974, further to a process overseen by the Jersey Appointments Commission, the following persons as panel members of the Social Security Tribunal for a period of 4 years: Mr. Robert Douglas, Mrs. June Summers-Shaw, Mrs. Susan Cumming.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I'm pleased to recommend that the Assembly reappoints Mr. Robert Douglas, Miss June Summers-Shaw and Mrs. Susan Cumming as panel members of the Social Security Tribunal for a final 4-year term. The 3 individuals have served as panel members since 2020, and I am grateful that they have all indicated that they wish to continue as members of the Tribunal for a final 4 years. The Social Security Tribunal has been in place since 1974 and hears appeals on a range of benefits under the Social Security Law 1974, as well as aspects of other legislation administered by the Employment, Social Security and Housing Department, such as income support and health insurance laws. Article 8 of the Social Security Determination of Claims and Questions, Jersey Order 1974, provides for the constitution of the Social Security Tribunal, and the tribunal comprises a chair or a deputy chair holding a qualification in law and 2 lay members from a panel of up to 12 other members. I am confident that all individuals have the skills necessary to uphold the fairness and integrity of the tribunal system. Sir, I am pleased to recommend the appointments to the Assembly and to make the proposition.
Thank you, Minister. Is the proposition seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does anyone wish to speak on the proposition? Constable St Mary.
Thank you, sir. First, can I confirm that I shall be supporting the proposition? And indeed, I thank the appointees for allowing their names to go forward for a further term. The reason I wish to speak, sir, is just to draw members' attention or remind members of the report of the Jersey Law Commission on the subject improving administrative redress in Jersey in October 2017. One of their recommendations was the creation of a new Jersey Administrative Appeals Tribunal, JAAT, which would effectively replace the 8 smaller tribunals of which this forms one part for better administration and hopefully saving costs. That has not yet been progressed, and perhaps in the context of further tribunals in the offing, in connection with the residential lettings law, and I think the employment control which comes to the States next time, I think it is an important subject which the Council of Ministers would do well to consider in bringing forward as soon as possible. The further point I mentioned, so, is that if a JAAT were established, it would also have the, as envisaged by the Commission, it would also have the ability to consider appeals from decisions of departments which at the present time fall to the Minister concerned, and it cannot be right in the interest of natural justice that an appeal against a decision of department goes to the Minister. So there's a further benefit in establishing this JAAT as soon as possible, in my belief. But to repeat, sir, I support the proposition to reappoint these members, and I, again, thank them for allowing their names to go forward. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Deputy Sutherland.
Yes, sir, and just briefly, I'd like to draw the Minister's attention to the statement that justice delayed is often justice denied. That I find the increasing length of time that it takes to achieve consensus or decisions on these sorts of a panel are becoming a serious fault that I think needs addressing.
Deputy Joseph.
Thank you, sir. I wanted to echo the remarks of the Constable of St Mary, because he's absolutely right that this has been an issue which has been long overdue in case of the caseload of the tribunal. And I will be supporting the proposition. Of course, the people that are doing this are doing absolutely the right amount. But as we're seeing in jurisdictions elsewhere, and even, dare I say it, the Labour Party in the UK, is now wanting to create the conditions where there is a greater incentive to work. And we have got, and the Minister will be aware, that there is a lot of people on long-term sick. And I'm concerned about that. I know the Tribunal is going to consider these, well, they can't consider the matters that is before them, but we do need, does the Minister not agree, to deal with both a fair, absolutely fair, in the case of people needing support. To echo the every appeal heard, there is a heartbeat of someone out of work, striving not for advantage, but for fairness. But we also need to encourage people back to work, and this tribunal is at the heart of it, is it not, sir?
So can I ask a point of clarification, please?
Will you accept a point of clarification, Deputy Joseph? Deputy Ward.
It's not for me to comment back on what I've just said, unless it's a point of clarification on the facts that I've just said.
Thank you, sir. The Deputy said that there are a lot of people on long-term sick. Can you explain what he means by a lot of people?
The numbers speak for themselves, so I can circulate the numbers, but it's not very clear. It's not for me to be the Social Security Minister. He will know the numbers himself, sir.
Sir, if you could circulate the numbers, that'd be good.
Does any other member speak on this proposition? Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank you for the members that took time to speak, and I thank the Constable in particular for reminding us of those recommendations that have been made in the past. I will say to Deputy Southern, if he could also discuss cases that he's concerned about with me, then I will undertake to take any necessary action as required. Deputy Ozov's comments about the number of people on sickness benefit, I think are quite unfortunate. We have almost full employment here on the island. The department has been working very hard as well to improve the provisions, particularly with our Work Well scheme, which enables people on short-term incapacity allowance to return to work and helps employers to help them do that. So, sir, I call for the appel.
Do you wish to ask the Minister to give way?
Yes, please. Just for a point of clarification, if she could just...
Are you prepared to give way, Minister?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. If the Minister could just outline exactly what long-term incapacity allowance means, because it's my understanding that people can still be in full-time employment and have access to this.
Yes, sir, the Deputy's understanding is absolutely correct. It was short-term incapacity allowance that people couldn't work and receive, but that has been rectified via the Work Well scheme, which is working very well.
Thank you very much. Those in favour of adopting the proposition kindly show. Thank you very much. The proposition is adopted. The next item is Income Support Medical Appeal Tribunal, reappointment of members lodged by the Minister for Social Security. The main respondent is the chair of the Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel. I ask the Greffier to read the proposition.
The states are asked to decide whether they are of opinion to appoint in accordance with under Article 15 of the Income Support General Provisions Jersey Order 2008, and further to a process overseen by the Jersey Appointments Commission, the following persons as lay members of the Income Support Medical Appeal Tribunal for a 4-year period: Mr. Robert Douglas, Ms. June Summers-Shaw.
Minister.
So I'm pleased to recommend the Assembly reappoints Mr. Robert Douglas and Miss June Summers-Shaw as lay members of the Income Support Medical Appeal Tribunal for a final 4-year term. The two individuals have served as lay members of the Income Support Medical Appeal Tribunal since 2020, and I am grateful that they have indicated that they wish to continue as members of the tribunal for a final 4 years. The Income Support Medical Appeal Tribunal hears appeals on the award of the impairment component under the income support system and any other decisions made on medical grounds. It may also hear appeals regarding case requirements for home carers allowance and the case assessments for long-term care. Article 15 of the Income Support General Provisions Jersey Order 2008 provides for the composition of the Income Support Medical Appeal Tribunal and the terms of appointment of its members. The tribunal comprises of the following: a chair or deputy chair holding a qualification in law, a panel of up to 5 members who are medical practitioners, and a panel of up to 5 lay members with experience with disability. The tribunal is constituted of a chair or deputy chair, a medical practitioner, and a lay member. I am confident that both individuals have the necessary skills to uphold the fairness and integrity of the tribunal system, and I make the proposition.
Thank you very much, Minister. Is the proposition seconded?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak on the proposition? Yes, Conatile Wilson Mary.
I need to speak, and I simply ask that my comments in relation to the last proposition apply equally here. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Deputy Joseph.
Thank you, sir. I do correct, it is the Social Security Analysis of Claimants Report 2023 that did say that it was actually income support. So my comments on the previous one were incorrectly suggesting, because there is indeed the good work that's been done in relation to this. However, the report does show, and this is the tribunal that will be dealing with it, and the constable's comments are right, that there was effectively, according to the Minister's own report, 3,050 households, at which one working age adult was not in full-time work. I know that's full-time work. But
is this relevant to the point of these members?
Well, it is, because that's the work that they have to do, sir. So I'll sit down and just say that they've got a lot of work to do.
Right. Does any other member speak on this proposition? Deputy Sutherland.
Yes, sir. And again, just briefly, has the Minister got any plans under consideration for radical change of the terms and conditions under which people can receive income support through medical benefits? Or is that because I feel that the terms and conditions to be met are somewhat old-fashioned?
Is this relevant to the appointment of these members, Deputy Sutherland, onto this particular tribunal?
Because if we were to change the conditions under which they operate, they'd have a different set of decisions to make.
Any other members wish to speak? Minister.
I thank all the members that have spoken. I'm quite happy to take Deputy Sutherland through my ministerial plan, which goes through all of my planned work programme for this year, and other members and members of the public can find the departmental business plan online on the government website.
Thank you. Those in favour of adopting the proposition kindly show.
Held, please, sir.
The appel has been called for. Members are invited to return to their seats. I ask the greffier to open the voting. If all members have the chance of casting their votes, I ask the greffier to close the voting. The proposition has been adopted unanimously, 41 votes for. I've assumed members are content to continue with the business and to adjourn. Yes, thank you. The final item is Jersey Police Complaints Authority appointment of member, lodged by the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. The main respondent is the Chair of the Children, Education and Home Affairs Scrutiny Panel. I ask the greffier to read the proposition.
The states are asked to decide whether they're of opinion, in accordance with Article 2 of and the Schedule 2, the Police Complaints Discipline Jersey Law 1999, to appoint the following person as a member of the Jersey Police Complaints Authority for a period of 3 years, commencing immediately. Mr. David Porter.
Minister.
Sir, may I just ask a quick question? I think I've asked this before, and I can't remember the answer. As a member of the Jersey Police Authority, can I vote on this, or do I have a conflict of interest? I think I can.
I think you can vote. I think you can vote on it. Yes.
Okay,
thank you, Deputy, for raising that. Yes, Minister.
Thank you, sir. I'm very pleased to recommend that the Assembly reappoints Mr David Porter as a member of the Jersey Police Complaints Authority for a second 3-year term. Mr Porter has served on the Police Complaints Authority as a valued member for 1 3-year term. As one of the most experienced members of the authority in post, I'm grateful that he has indicated a wish to continue to serve in that important role. As members will be aware, the Jersey Police Complaints Authority supervises the investigation of complaints against the States of Jersey Police. This is independent oversight is crucial to maintaining and building trust and confidence in our police force. The authority is constituted under the Police Complaints and Discipline Jersey Law 1999, and in accordance with that law must consist of a chair as well as not least 6 and no greater than 8 members. I am sure the Assembly will join me in paying tribute to all members of the authority who all serve on a voluntary basis and give up their time to serve on the authority for no remuneration. Sir, I am pleased to recommend the appointment to the Assembly. I make the proposition.
Thank you, Minister. Is the proposition seconded? Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Those in favour kindly show. Thank you very much. The proposition is adopted. That concludes public business for this meeting. I invite the Chair of PPC to propose the arrangement of public business for future meetings. Chair.
Thank you, sir. At the moment, we have 7 items listed for our next sitting on the 1st of April. I expect that we may be sitting for 2 days, and as ever, please keep the subsequent 2 days free in case we have a longer debate. Sir, I propose the arrangement of business.
Is that seconded? Does anyone wish to speak on the proposition of the Chair? Yes.
So I just wanted to ask if members are going to move propositions, could they please let us know as soon as they possibly can, because there have been a lot moved recently. It'd be great, and particularly if they're going to be withdrawn, then we would know. Thank you, sir.
Are members now content to adjourn? The Assembly is adjourned until Tuesday, the 1st of April at 9:30 a.m.